What's up, everyone? It's the interview queen Alicia Toot here, and be sure to watch Tru Heel Heat.
All right, hello, Tru Heel Heat. I'm the AEW World Champion MJF. Just in case you're deaf, dumb, blind, stupid, or since you listen to this podcast, or you're listening to Tru Heel Heat, and I apologize for that.
Hello everyone, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley wishing a nice day to everyone there, right there at Tru Heel Heat. Yeah!
Yo, what up? You know what it is. It's your boy AJ Francis reporting to you live from New York City, the birthplace of hip-hop. And I'm telling you that I'm only tuned in with Tru Heel Heat Wrestling. Holla at me.
What a week in pro wrestling it was. AEW All Out is in the books with one of the most violent, visceral, and bloody pay-per-views in modern wrestling history. You had season premieres galore as it is WWE week on the USA Network, SmackDown moving over to USA Network, and they got the Motor City Machine Guns on their way to the CW for the NXT premiere. Also, maybe the Hurt Syndicate over to AEW, maybe even AEW going over to SmackDown's old home of Fox. Cody is number one in the PWI500, and we got a special guest this week, so a lot to unwrap on the flagship. So get your plates. The Saturday morning cookout is here. Hit the intro. Hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom, SP3. We are live on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for Tru Heel Heat 294, hurting for Machine Guns and Fox. Discussing the latest wrestling news, including AEW in talks with Fox for a new TV show amid their ongoing deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. The Motor City Machine Guns set to debut on WWE NXT for the upcoming CW launch episode. Hurt Business in talks with All Elite Wrestling for a possible debut, and a recap of this week in wrestling with AEW All Out featuring Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland, brutal lights out steel cage match, and the BCC turning on Bryan Danielson. Dynamite featuring major shakeups for Grand Slam, Rampage ROH, WWE SmackDown with Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes in a steel cage, leading to the return of Roman Reigns, Raw, NXT, New Japan, TNA, and our co-host best and worst and matches of the week. Of course, I am joined by the Tru Draw himself, Josh. How are you doing?
Doing good. Damn, there's a lot that happened this week. I didn't even notice.
Well, this is what we're here for at this point. We're always covering everything going on in this wild world of professional wrestling. This week, we are not joined by the princess of all the true heels, Miss Chrissy Love. She's got the week off to do mommy duty, but we got someone who's filling in her shoes this week. He is a wrestler. He does content galore. You can catch him on all the major platforms, including here on YouTube. Rich Port Ayala, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Josh, I want to say thank you too for the invite to come on and then linking me with Sid, and we was able to do this. So I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to be here.
There's no problem. No problem at all.
Yes, we're excited to have you today. And yes, this is Josh's first big booking of a special guest for us. So Josh is moving up in the world. He's booking guests now. I'll give you the reins. I'll pass off the rock where you could give like a proper intro of how you know Rich, and then give Rich the opportunity to kind of say everything that he's doing throughout this wrestling world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following Rich on Facebook for a while, and I noticed that he was doing a channel. I know he was doing some content. So I definitely wanted to give like a helping hand of like, if we could do anything that we could do, like I'm always willing to help out others, like especially if I feel like they have like potential good content. I feel like him and his co-host, they have like good takes. They have fair takes, in my opinion, when it comes to like talking about wrestling, because I feel like there's a lot of, wrestlers, like someone like Rich himself, that sometimes a lot of people, they like to gatekeep certain things. And I think sometimes it's like, it's okay to be a fan, right? It's okay to like enjoy something, and I feel like from the stuff that I've seen from him, like I feel like he's been very fair when it comes to like giving his takes, and even giving like some people their flowers. I know I saw one when he was talking about Dominic Mysterio, like he was giving him praise a lot of like the things that he's been doing, and I think that something like that is very important. It's very fair for us to like to listen to.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that, man. That was a great introduction. I really do appreciate that, man. Originally starting with that channel was just, I've always wanted to do my own thing, have my own channel. And I thought I wanted to bring something different. And what it was is that a lot of people, including you guys yourself, is that you make these channels where you're talking about professional wrestling, and it's all about the take of the fan. And I wanted to do something different where you can get the take from an actual worker that's there as well. And that's why I wanted the channel to be different. And then also I'm in there with my best friend. He's actually take the perspective of the fan, and we go back and forth on the perspective of the worker. So that's what I wanted to bring to everybody. And I feel like it's doing a great job right now, but little by little, it'll start to grow a little bit better.
Indeed. What was kind of like, I know you wanted to kind of bring that perspective of like a worker and a fan, but like, is there any other like channels out there or any other like podcasts that kind of inspired you to kind of do your own thing and create your own content?
What really inspired me was the way coming up in professional wrestling, they teach you that a fan and a worker, we can't be together. It's like a code thing. You cannot associate yourself with a fan. And my thing is, I've always stuck to that. And then there became a point where I could give props to Logan Paul. Logan Paul right now, he's doing his thing in WWE. He's doing good. And then next, he'll have a match. And then he goes onto his podcast and he's there talking about things that he did in WWE. And that made me think like, man, if this guy could do that and still be put in main stories, why I can't do that? So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go the opposite way of what everybody's telling me to not to do. And I'm just going to do it. And I want to give people that perspective where it feels real too. I wanted to give them the realism on how we feel as a worker and from the fan, you know? So that's what inspired it.
Love that. Love that for sure. We're going to hear more from Rich and his opinions going on in the world of wrestling like we do here every Saturday, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time, the Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us live. We appreciate y'all if you're watching us on demand. Remember to show your appreciation back the simplest way possible. You just drop the thumbs up on the video. You can share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family on all your favorite social media platforms. If you are new to the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to stay notified for all the great content here. And of course, if you're watching us on Facebook, drop a heart, a like, however you feel about this week in wrestling. Let us know with those emotes. Watching us on Twitter, drop a heart and retweet, help the algorithm over there. But if you're watching on any of the three platforms, the best thing you can do is sound off in the live chat. We love to interact with all of you. We're one of the most interactive podcasters around, so we'll try to highlight as many of your comments as possible. But of course, if you're feeling generous, you want to give back to what we do here and help the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel grow even more, hit the $sign and send a super chat donation. Any dollar amount matters. It goes back to the contributors that you usually see on screen with us here. So we always appreciate that type of support. Like we got here from Chuck Berries. Thank you so much, Chuck Berries. Starting us off strong. He says, congrats to SP3 on your new gig with SI. Your expertise and passion for pro wrestling warrants this hiring. Here's to continued success for you and the entire THH gang. Shout out to Rick and Dutch as well. Yeah, shout out to those guys, my good brothers over on the Sportskeeda Wrestle Binge YouTube channel, Smack Talk, our SmackDown post show. And yes, I kind of mentioned it, I believe, on one of the streams I did this week. I think on the Victory Road preview, I just accepted a role over at sportsillustrated.com for their wrestling team, where I'm going to be doing TNA interviews as well as some features and some player profiles for the website. Very excited to join the Sports Illustrated team. Sports Illustrated has kind of been a outlet and a platform that I've followed since my childhood, since I found my dad's swimsuit magazines under his bed at a very young age. So it is like a dream come true to join over there. I'm also still doing work with WrestleTalk.com. That's my main source as far as like news writing, but it's kind of me venturing out a bit more and providing the TNA content as far as interviews over at sportsillustrated.com. And you can check out my first piece for SI.com with my interview with three-time TNA World Champion Moose. That interview is up on the channel. It dropped yesterday. So very excited. And thank you so much, Chuck Berries, for those sweet thoughts and congratulations. And I was kind of really overwhelmed and very much touched by all the support I got on, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all across the social medias this week. Thank you so much, guys. And really, this channel and your support, the community that we built here, is the reason why I'm able to get the other opportunities outside of the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. So I appreciate that. And I also appreciate Josh with his own post, shouting me out as well. I appreciate that, brother.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I think it's very deserving. I think you put in the work. You put in the work over the years, and I'm happy, me personally, not only as a friend, but to somebody that not only being a big fan, but you take this serious. Like when it comes to news, when it comes to giving your opinions on things, I've seen it over the years. I've seen it since 2017, 2018. So I always knew there was something in store for you. So I'm very happy that, you're getting like one of the biggest opportunities you ever had when it comes to this. Sports Illustrated is very, very big. I was like, when you told us that, I was like, it was never a doubt. I know everybody was like congratulating, but I was like, me, I was like, I knew this was gonna happen.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate that for sure. Yeah, like I said, I'm very much overwhelmed. I don't know how to take compliments too much, so I'm gonna stop it there. We also got in the chat with us today, Christopher Kidd, who says that PWI list is cool and all, but besides WrestleMania itself, Swerve had a much better year than Cody. We're gonna talk about the PWI500, at least with the top 5. But any thoughts? Because we're, I don't know how much time we got you for, Rich, but what was your thoughts being a worker on the PWI500? How do you view it, and what do you think about Cody being number 1?
I think it was fair. I think the list that they have is legit. Like the order that they have, all those guys deserve to be in that spot. And of course, Cody being the champ that he is, and when you mention the business side of professional wrestling, right now Cody is killing it right now. Even just thinking about merchandise sales, not just talking about the wrestling. In merchandise, he's killing it. He's at the top right now. So him being number 1 is legit, and Swerve being number 2, I can't be mad at that. Like they all work hard for that spot, and is well deserved.
Yeah, for Swerve, it's the highest ranking for an African American wrestler since The Rock was number 2 back in like 2000, 2001. So man, both guys deserve all the love and support that they've been getting, especially on the PWI being number 1 and 2. We got Eric Isaac, who says, "What's up, THH fam? What a wild week of wrestling this has been. 2024 ain't over yet. It is not at all." We also got Bell, who mentions, "Hello all, I will always be here asking the important questions, and WWE heard me about one time asking about Death Rebel, and yes, it was reported by PW Nexus that the contract with Death Rebel is seemingly expiring, and WWE might not be renewing their deal with Death Rebel and leaning more towards content, basically musical content with legit artists." So, hey, I'm down for that. I've heard good Death Rebel songs, like Roman's theme is good, Seth Rollins' theme is good, Bobby Lashley's theme is good, but there's been too many misses. So unfortunately, I think it's time for WWE to part ways. I'm okay with that, Bell.
Yeah, I think majority of people are at this point. Unfortunately.
Yeah, we're at that point of the whole drama there. But bring back Jim Johnston. That's what I say. Tru Heel Roll Call is how we start off every edition of our flagship podcast. Shout out you who's supporting us across social media and our Patreon page, patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. We got our Tru Heel Trinity, our top 3 conversation starters over on our Tru Heels group page. You got Stewie John Palmer, you got Neil Benedict, you got Alan Weinstein at number 1. Thank you so much, guys. And we got our Patreon backers, Vala B, Alan Weinstein, Nick Jackson, Alice McCarthy, Professor Chris, Trey, Robert, Steve, Ladarius, John, Dan, Kobe, Dolores, John Martin, DJ Eric, Marcus, James, Alan, and Santo. Thank you so much for supporting us over at patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. $3 a month gets you exclusive content and the best place to support us when we're not live here. But let's get into what we missed. And of course, we're going to start off with last Saturday. We previewed, gave our final predictions for All Out 2024. So let's start off with All Out 2024 and what a show it was in Chicago, Illinois. And of course, the main matchup that everybody was talking about heading into the event was the main event. Lights out, steel cage, main event. And what a match that was. Hangman Adam Page defeating Swerve Strickland in a visceral and extremely violent lights out steel cage matchup that had center blocks that did not break. It was taking power bombs and vertebreakers. We had burnt wood from Swerve's burnt down house. You had staples, you had tables, and oh my God, we had a needle injection to close the matchup. And an unprotected chair shot to the head, breaking a chair over Swerve's head, was how Hangman Adam Page finally defeated Swerve Strickland after 3 previous matches ahead of All Out, Swerve finally got his revenge Swerve finally got his comeuppance as Hangman got his revenge in what was a memorable main event to the show. You also had Will Ospreay defeating Pac in an absolutely spectacular encounter that had Chicago loud from the opening bell and on their feet for a large majority of that matchup, as Will Ospreay retained the AEW International Championship in what many people are calling one of the best matches of the year. And in my opinion, the best women's match in North America that I've seen this year, Chris Statlander beat Willow Nightingale in a Chicago street fight that was so intense, so brutal. Both ladies putting it all on the line, light tubes, chains, thumbtacks to the crotch area, as Statlander finally pulled off the win against the CMLL World Women's Champion. MJF and Daniel Garcia had an excellent grudge match, which MJF was able to steal the win, but Garcia got his revenge with an avalanche power driver in the post-match after attempting to low blow Garcia again, who learned his lesson and took Max out. We also had Kazuchika Okada defeating Orange Cassidy and ROH World Champion Mark Briscoe and Konosuke Takeshita, which this match was largely about Okada and Takeshita going at it. But Okada was able to retain the AEW Continental Championship in a super fun 4-way matchup. The Young Bucks retained the AEW World Tag Team Championships in a very good tag team matchup against the Blackpool Combat Club's Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. You also had Mercedes Moné get the win over Hikaru Shida to retain the TBS Championship. And then finally, the big moment was first Bryan Danielson retaining the AEW World Championship in what I thought was a great match against Jack Perry, probably Jack Perry's best match since turning heel last year, as Bryan retained, but post-match, he was attacked by Killswitch, which led to Christian Cage coming down to seemingly cash in his AEW World title shot, but Pac and the Blackpool Combat Club stopped Christian and the Patriarchy from getting in the ring. This led to the BCC celebrating all together, only for Claudio Castagnoli to deliver a European uppercut to Danielson, and Jon Moxley suffocating the AEW World Champion with a plastic bag, as Pac made Wheeler Yuta watch in an emotional and shocking heel turn, as the BCC, seemingly how it was, is no more. Rich, we'll start with you. What was your overall thoughts on All Out, and what was the moments that stood out the most to you on this show?
First of all, I felt that All Out was a bit much. And the reason I'm saying that is because I just felt every single match was just too long. And the whole pay-per-view in general was just too long. That thing went up to a little over 4 hours. And the reason I didn't really enjoy that is because I'm talking into perspective of you guys. I'm talking to the perspective of the fan, where you want to be invested, but now it's just going so long where it's like, damn, when is this match gonna end? Or when is this whole show gonna end? I know that's how I felt watching it, because there were matches that should have been shorter and they just were being treated as if they were main events. And it had to do like the beginning, like from the first, the second, the third, like everything felt like all those guys was just trying to get their thing in, and it just went too long. Now, with that aside, there were some matches that I really enjoyed watching, that I was into it, that I wanted to invest in. And the one match that probably in a wrestling standpoint that made sense to me was the match with Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry. On how the match went from beginning to end, I feel that it made sense. I feel I have it in my notes that they took their time, they let stuff sink in, and you got to enjoy it. I know I got to enjoy it. I got to enjoy the moments that happened in that match. Of course, there was little things that probably from a worker's standpoint I could have done differently. But overall, it was still a great match. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed the MJF and Garcia match. That was one of the matches that I felt that it could have went home a long time ago. It went a little too long. Because they already had great moments. What was the point of keep going and keep bringing more? Pac and Ospreay. I enjoyed that match. I'm a big fan of Pac. I think anytime he comes out or he's on the card, he's gonna deliver and he's gonna make you believe. And I enjoyed it, but that was another match where I enjoyed everything, but it could have went home a long time ago. It didn't need to go that long. In regards to, I'm just saying things that just standing out in my mind right now. In regards to the women's match, my opinion, that match didn't need to be what it was. It didn't need to be a street fight. That should have been a regular match. I would have left the street fight, all the weapons and everything, to the main event, to Cowboy and Swerve. That should have been left to them. Those little things like that. Yeah. The moment with Bryan Danielson and they turned on him, the Combat Club turned on him, and the whole moment with is Yuta, right? I always mispronounce his name.
Wheeler Yuta.
With Yuta, with him struggling, yelling. Like, I love that. That's the story right there. I love that stuff. Overall, it was pretty decent, but again, I felt that it just went a little too long. It just went a little too long because there were matches where I wanted to invest in, but now I'm exhausted. You understand? Like, I'm exhausted now. So
hey, I can definitely understand. I'm in the UK, so I'm 5 hours ahead. That show didn't end until 5 a.m. for me, so I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, so that was like the most thing that stood out to me. It was just too long.
Josh, what about you? I know you were on the review, but any additional thoughts on All Out a week later? What kind of still stands out to you? What stuff will you remember? And any complaints or anything you want to praise from the show?
I still stand by what I said about the show. I thought the overall show was great. The main event, it was super violent because when they had the Texas Death match, they did a lot of stuff in that match. So, when they had the cage match, I'm like, well, what else are they going to do? Because the other match was what it was. And they definitely amped up a lot of stuff in that match. But overall, like I said, I thought the show was great. And it's crazy because I know like there's people like Rich said, like that it was too long. This one kind of felt like it flew by compared to like other pay-per-views that they've had. Like because Forbidden Door, when I was there, Forbidden Door, that felt long. Like that felt long, but I still enjoyed it. And then other pay-per-views, I'm trying to remember, I think Double or Nothing, like Double or Nothing felt really long. But then, so like this one, like when I saw the time, I was like, oh shit, like I didn't realize it was like 4 hours, but it felt like it flew by. And I think maybe part of it was because they did do less matches. I think when when they put like 12 or 13 matches, I think that's for me. I think that's where it feels like is like, all right, now it's becoming a little too much, but I felt like the less match actually benefited them, in my opinion.
I would say I do get where Rich is coming from in regards to, because of the smaller match count, they were able to give a bunch of matches more time than maybe they really needed. But I think to its benefit, the crowd reacted big to most of the matches. But when you do that for every match, one of the matches is going to kind of be lesser than it would have because you're being so successful, because Pac and Ospreay had more time than they probably would have had on an 11 match card, and that was great, and the crowd ate it up, and people are saying it's a match of the year candidate. Whereas, you know, Willow and Chris, they went balls to the wall. They had like 12 minutes and they went balls to the wall. They put their foot on the pedal and it was full throttle from the minute go. But then you go to like a Mercedes and Sheeta, which for most people, it seems a week later, that was the weakest match on the card. That is where I could say, like, that match probably had like 5 more minutes than it really needed. And if it was 5 minutes less, maybe we don't get the awkward finish and the clunky finish to that matchup, which really it was going well. And then Mercedes just no-sell 3 knees to the face. Then they did the whole kendo stick spot that didn't make any sense. Then she chop blocked her, hit another bad moneymaker, and now we're here looking at Mercedes like, hey, these are back-to-back pay-per-views. You kind of had a disappointing matchup. So I can understand that type of perspective.
Yeah, that Mercedes match, in my opinion, I felt that, I could be wrong, but I felt like it was probably a chemistry thing. I feel like the chemistry was off between the two. I like them both, but it was just maybe the language, you know, I don't know. Maybe the language barrier, communicating with each other was difficult, but the chemistry felt off. The timing was off with things in the match. So I feel like that's why we got what we saw. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. But I think that's what it was. And I think it was just a bad day at the office for them.
Yeah, it's just it's sad because I think that this was on a better track than the, say, Mercedes and Britt, where that just seemed like, yeah, that was bad chemistry. And I've seen a good Sheeta and Mercedes matchup from a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite. I thought that match was good. And like I said, I thought the first like 10 minutes of this matchup, it was going really well. They were having like a hard-hitting matchup, and then just like you're probably right that the communication maybe for that last 5 minutes of the matchup just totally broke down, and the chemistry was just way off. And it is what it is, sadly.
Yeah, that's how it kind of felt for me too. Like I felt like, I forgot which spot was it, but I noticed when she got hit, she took the bump, and then all of a sudden she moved like really fast out of the ring. That's where I kind of noticed, like, I think for me, that's where it fell off to me, because it kind of just felt weird. It kind of just felt, I don't know what she was trying to do. And then, like you said, the kendo stick thing was kind of just like, all right, this was just added. And I think that's where it kind of like got muddy in that situation when it comes to the match itself.
Mm-hmm. So my main question for the both of you is a question that was kind of asked, and we kind of talked about it on our review of the show. So I'll ask you, Rich. You said you're kind of complaining about it maybe being a little too long, but what about the violence portion of it, with the show having, the plastic bag spot with Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, the needle and the cinder blocks and the unprotected chair shot, and Hangman versus Swerve? Do you think AEW took it too far with the violence of All
Out? I know that's a tough one, but that's a tough one because I know everybody's talking about it, that it should have never happened the way it did. But when you're in there in professional wrestling, you're trying to make a moment, you're trying to stand out, you're trying to be different than what everybody else is doing. I feel that the plastic bag spot was different. We've never seen that before. I feel that AEW succeeded with that spot. No matter what the fans say, the purpose is for you to get the fans to like think the unexpected, and that was unexpected for that plastic bag spot. So I think it was a success. As long as it's done safely and Bryan Danielson didn't freaking really die, I think he's fine. with that part. So I believe it was done safely. I can tell it was done safely. I don't know, but I feel like it was a success though, because it was something different. And I know me from my personal experience, when I put a match together, I want to be different than what everybody else is doing to stand out. And I feel like that spot did that. In regards to the cage match, I felt like, again, there a lot went on, but that was another match that could have went home a long time ago. The cinder block was scary. It was scary. But thank God that they both was able to, get through that. The only thing that did not make sense to me, and I'm gonna stick with it. The only thing that didn't make sense to me was the syringe spot. The syringe, it made no sense to me. What I would love to ask them, what was the purpose of you sticking a syringe in his mouth and then just watching him having it dangle out of his mouth, and then you come out of nowhere and hit him with a steel chair to the head? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it. You had the fans already. You already had him. If the purpose was to knock him out, you just knock him out with the chair. I don't get it. I'm gonna stick with it until I get an explanation from Tony or Swerve or Hangman. I don't get it. I feel like it made no sense whatsoever. Again, yeah, I think it was all right with the girls. In regards to the girls, again, like I said earlier, that should have never been a street fight. Those girls should have never had that match, because I feel that it would take away from the main event. That was the whole reason, was I didn't want it to take away from the main event. The main event should have had those moments. And it was, I want to give you a quick example, is because I did an episode on my podcast where I was discussing that. And while we're talking about the cage match, my co-host, he comes in and he says, yeah, that spot with the thumbtacks, it didn't make any sense. And I said, where was there thumbtacks in the cage match? I didn't say it exactly like that, but I was like, what are you talking about? What are you referring? And he got it confused. He thought that the thumbtacks was in the cage match. Like, he got it confused. And that's the reason why I say that match should have never happened with the girls in that fashion. Those moments should have stood for the main event.
That's fair, because I was thinking, like, after we saw the street fight, and like I said, I thought it was one of the best women's matches in North America. I was like, well, I know now we're not going to get thumbtacks in the cage match, because they did the thumbtack spot, which was one of the more memorable spots in that matchup. In that match, we're not going to get light tubes in the lights out steel cage match, because that was one of the big spots in the street fight. Yeah, it is kind of like, if you're putting both of these matches on the show, you're taking something away from one match or the other. So I get that type of, like, of judgment. It's not even like a complaint. It's more of like criticism, constructive criticism of putting both of those matches on the same show. And honestly, I thought that was a mistake to have that match after Ospreay and Pac. It proved me wrong in over delivering in the spot that it did, but it's becoming a habit from Tony Khan of putting the women in, like, the worst possible position as far as match placement. When you follow a Will Ospreay matchup, the crowd is probably not going to be into the next matchup as much as they are, and we saw that at All In with Britt and Mercedes. I wish they could have put it maybe earlier in the card, like if that was like the second match on the card instead of the Bucks and Claudio and Wheeler. If the street fight was before Pac and Ospreay, I think it would even stand out even more than it does right now.
Yeah,
and you leave a little room between that and the main event as well.
Yeah, I agree, and that's also part of the reason why I mentioned that matches went too long. Let me tell you this, in my opinion, I think if Pac and Offspring maybe just cut that match a little shorter. When it was time for the girls to come in, maybe the people would have invested more.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I did like the crowd. The crowd was really good in Chicago, and they made the most of a lot of different matches. And like I said, I thought they were into the women's match a lot more than I thought when I saw the women were following back in Osprey. We got a couple of comments here in the live chat. We got our good brother Chase in the chat. Thanks for joining us today. He says, death matches, not my thing, but I don't mind if feuds need to use to advance or end. Yeah, I think like I agree with Rich and just agree with like a point I've been making since the review. And then I also was on Fightful this week talking about it. I think that this whole pay-per-view as a whole is what AEW should be. This is a pay-per-view that you would never see WWE do half of the stuff. You would never see WWE do an Osprey and Pac match. You would never see WWE definitely not do a lights out steel cage matchup. They have their way of doing a steel cage matchup. You would never see them do the Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander street fight over there. So this was what AEW should have always been. It's an alternative. You can't be WWE light, because you're never going to do WWE better than WWE. You need to be an alternative. And I think that the violence portion of this, I don't think they didn't go too far. They went right up to the line of where they're supposed to be of being an alternative to what WWE is. WWE is number one. It's clear as day. It's number one, and a big gap between them and AEW. The way AEW is going to stand out and be what it needs to be is being an alternative to what WWE offers. And I thought that's what the best part about All Out was. It was definitely an alternative to what WWE offers. Josh, what did you think about them going too far or not with the violence?
I don't think they went too far. Just because like I've seen worse in other events. I think a lot of people, maybe they're asking that question just because we had those two matches. We had the Statlander, Willow, and then we had the cage match, and we see what they did in the cage match. So I think that's why it's more questionable of like people are saying they went too far. And then, the Danielson and Mox spot that happened. I mean, I can understand where people would feel about that. People have their own perspectives of like when it comes to like deathmatch wrestling and stuff like that kind of style. And for me, like I've always said, like to me, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I'm not 100% opposed to it, because I've always been in favor of like, hey, if the talent is in favor of it, if they know what they're getting themselves into, and if they're okay with it, then by all means, right? They know the risks that they're getting themselves into. Where my opinion would be different is that if they're put in a position where they're forced to do that, then that's a different topic. Like that's a different kind of subject. But if these performers are willing to, take, step further, they're willing to do things that they haven't done and they're okay with it, then, by all means, that's how I view it when it comes to that.
Good point. But yes, we'll talk more about All Out, I guess, at the end of the year and see where it ranks as far as shows of the year. But I've been hearing that, and we'll see where it ranks as far as AEW. For me, I would say it's probably third best AEW pay-per-view for me this year. I still got Revolution number one. I don't know how they're going to top Revolution. Revolution was 8 matches. I felt like everybody got enough time. I'm going to remember the Sting retirement matchup. I'm going to remember Ospreay and Takeshita. I'm going to remember Bryan and Eddie Kingston. And that was their best pay-per-view. Second is All In, because I was there live in the Bryan Danielson family section. So I'll always remember that till the day I die. And then this was probably third for me as far as AEW goes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair. I think I have it the same. I think Revolution to me too, same thing. But also because we were there live, we were there in person to make the trip and to enjoy it.
Yeah, but AEW was not just in the news for All Out this week. They were in the news because they're wheeling and dealing, because it's coming to the point where they're going to have to announce whether their TV deal with Warner Brothers Discovery is it good to go or not. But They have even bigger news as a new rumor has kind of hit the headlines. A new report had some details to rumors that AEW could be in talks with Fox for a new program as the company closes in on a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery for their media rights. As has been reported, AEW is said to be close to an agreement on a media deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, with Tony Khan saying over the weekend at the Collision and Rampage taping that it was safe to say the company will be staying on those networks going forward. There was speculation online that AEW programming could appear on another network, and Fightful Select had some more on those rumors. The report notes that the AEW and WBD deal is very close, but has yet to be completed, with WBD reps saying simply that talks are ongoing and apical. Both sides expect their deal to be done and the partnership to continue. Meanwhile, Fox's deal with WWE officially ended last Friday, with SmackDown moving to the USA network this last night. The report notes that Fox has long looked at the idea of bringing more wrestling content over, and it was previously reported that they nearly brought MLW onto Tubi, which was a factor in MLW's lawsuit with WWE. The company has reportedly been interested in a seasonal wrestling show for Tubi, and there's been talks within AEW and in the TV industry that select AEW content could end up on Tubi, with internal speculation that the AEW Shockwave trademark that the company took out last week could be for a new program headed to Fox, whether on Fox proper, Tubi, or Fox Sports 1 or elsewhere. One source close to Fox has noted that they have no difficulty in selling ads for wrestling content, although the cost of SmackDown cut into profits a lot, and that with the right deal, Fox would be interested in wrestling still. One source near Fox has indicated that the two sides have had contact with AEW, but Fox's reps did not return requests for contact. This would be a big change for All Elite Wrestling, which had an exclusivity clause in their current deal with AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery that's been in place since Collision joined the lineup. The exclusivity clause runs through the end of the year. Andrew Zarian of the Matman podcast and Fightful did confirm that exclusivity clause is done. And in regards to the deal with WBD, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that multiple sources believe the TV rights deal between AEW and WBD is quote unquote done. Khan previously noted that past reporting was mostly accurate, and those reports suggest a contract had been written and lawyers were looking through it. And it was also reported that the deal will be for double the amount of the previous AEW deal. That was my daughter giving me a soda. Look at it. Look, see,
I was looking at the camera. I was like, what's she doing? I was like, what is she doing?
She literally standing there and waiting for me to finish. She gives me the soda, and she also moves my notes so I can see the screen. Gotta love kids. Rich, from like a worker standpoint, what do you think about all the talks that's been about like these major companies, WWE, AEW, making these big money contract deals? And what does it say about the wrestling business that they're getting these big money deals and the possibility of an AEW going to the same network that had WWE for the past 5 years?
I think it's just showing how much professional wrestling is profitable, and I'm really hoping that whatever it is, I really don't care if it's Fox or whatever, like anywhere it goes. I just hope that I hope AEW is successful, because talking from my perspective as a worker, I'm still looking for a job. I'm still looking for where I want to be able. I need a platform to go to get over, and whether it's WWE, whether it's AEW, it doesn't matter. So I'm just hoping that whatever deal is made, they make it, because wherever I go, I want to be making sure that people see me from my perspective as a worker.
Nah, definitely understand that. You want to be on a platform that has some stability on a network like that, because it's more eyes on you. So 100% agreed there. What do you think, Josh, about AEW possibly going to Fox, whether it be Fox Sports Net, to be basically being as our great producer who loves to put these headlines on screen, being the rebound chick for Fox after WWE has left?
I mean, he's a rebound chick. I mean, it's interesting. Just because, like, when I heard the news, I was like, "What? Like Fox? Like, you know?" Oh, how's it going?
That's Josh and Rich. Say hi.
Hi, Nick. What happened? What's this?
That's your godfather in the producer spot backstage.
Yeah, we got some.
And what do you tell them? Send super chats?
Send super chat to get. I got more stickers in my eye. Face mask.
See, there he is.
Super chats. Hi.
Say hi, Johnny.
My Johnny. Nick.
Oh, okay. All right. She said she got a tummy ache, so she has to leave. All right.
Oh, that's so
sorry. You made everybody laugh.
Yeah.
She's
okay. That was what Harlem thinks about this deal. But go ahead, John.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting because I was like, oh, all right. Because I know Fox for a fact, it wasn't so much Fox was against the wrestling, and like they want something profitable for their channel. And I think since day one, I know like they weren't happy with the results of SmackDown, even though we were seeing like SmackDown was the highest rated show for WWE. They're getting over 2 million plus every time they were on. They're getting 2 million plus. One of their highest rated SmackDowns was when the Rocks the Rock was showing up. So it was one of those things that for us, when we're looking, it looks like they were succeeding, but Fox wasn't. They weren't thrilled, and for the 5 years that they had them with, it seemed like they were never happy. It seemed like Fox really never had their backs on certain things, because it was always like every time you hear something from Fox, it was always something negative. So by the time SmackDown was going back to USA, you saw the reaction from Fox. Fox was just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, go ahead. Who cares? Like, they didn't even try to make an offer. They didn't even try to renew anything. They were content of WWE leaving. So, I think it was more of they felt like they were pumping out money, but they weren't getting anything back. So I mean, that's why it's more interesting to me. I'm like, oh, all right, they'll be interested in getting a smaller company paying less. That might help them more, but then also has to do with advertisements. That's one of the things we have criticized AEW for, is like the advertising, is the stuff like that. A platform like Fox could help them when it comes to that. So I mean, there's some benefits when it comes to them moving to. It's just interesting all around, because I'm like, what the hell were they gonna do? Because we already have Dynamite, we have Collision. What would this third thing be when it comes to that?
I think that the best decision, if this deal is going to go through, first of all, I want to say bravo, Tony Khan, bravo, AEW, because I've been saying this for months, that they are not doing their due diligence if they're just going to keep only talking to Warner Brothers Discovery. You don't know what you can make outside of that relationship if you're only dealing with them. And I understand they had the whole negotiation window, but once that was done in July, I was really saying it even louder that, hey, let's see what you can get outside of here. Let's see what Fox is going to say. Let's see what MTV would say. All these different networks and channels that have had wrestling before. Let's see what their interest is in it right now, because wrestling, like Rich said before, is hotter than it's ever been, and it's a big time money business right now. So let's see what you can do outside of it. So I think that this is a positive sign for AEW, especially only being 5 years old. that you could possibly be on Warner Brothers Discovery with 2 shows with 4 hours of content and then another hour on Fox. That's going to help you promote what you're doing on Warner Brothers Discovery or what you do on pay-per-view. You can see some increases in your pay-per-view business, which has been probably the most lucrative we've seen out of professional wrestling in the past decade, what AEW has been able to do on pay-per-view, especially this year. Where I think I did the averages. I talked about it with Jimmy Macaram privately, and I didn't get to bring it up on AE Ramble this week, but I think their average on pay-per-view buys this year is like up. It's like at like 110, 120 120,000 buys per pay-per-view this year. Like they're doing really well. It's up from last year as far as their pay-per-view business, and having an outlet like Fox, which has more viewers or different viewers than what you're getting on Warner Brothers Discovery, is going to help that. Or if you're going to transition that to the Max streaming service, it's going to help in Max subscriptions of people getting that type of content. What I want this thing to be is, first of all, get rid of Rampage, because y'all don't care about Rampage. Y'all don't care about Rampage. Let's be real. What y'all been putting out on Rampage, y'all don't care about that. So just get rid of it. Do your 2 hours of Dynamite on Wednesday. Do 2 hours of Collision. And with WBD losing the NBA rights, maybe you can move Collision to a more beneficial day for you, like maybe a Thursday outside of the fall and the winter when you have to compete with the NFL. That will probably be better ratings-wise, as my daughter agrees, I guess. Yeah? You say yes? There we go. But that would help there. And then get 1 hour of, I want it to be like, you remember Livewire, WWF Livewire, where they just had someone in the studio, whether it be like Todd Pettengill, and all they would be doing is promoting like Raw. They would be promoting Raw and telling people, this is the storylines. These are the main storylines in WWF. This is what you need to check out. And then they would have 1 or 2 matches. That's what I want the AEW Shockwave to be. Something that promotes the rest of AEW, promotes what's going on Dynamite, promotes the major storylines, promotes the pay-per-view, and just do 1 or 2 matches. That's all I need. That's all I want for this new show to be, to make it different from what you give on AEW Dynamite or Collision. Because let's be honest here, you're not always like giving us the best stuff on Rampage, and maybe you don't need an extra hour of doing a 5-match card, and you could do something a little bit different and really utilize what Tony Schiavone was always great at. Tony Schiavone used to do that type of content on WCW Saturday Night in the 90s. I think that would help in promoting AEW a lot better and using the platform of Fox Sports 1 or just Fox in general to promote what you're doing with Dynamite, Collision, and your pay-per-views.
I want to add to that if I can. You mentioned about Rampage. So can you elaborate more on why you think? Because I want to say something, but I want to get your answer first before I get to it. With the Rampage, why do you think it should be wiped out? What from how many episodes we seen of Rampage from a fan's perspective? Why don't you like Rampage?
Not that I don't like Rampage, because I watch it every week, so I wouldn't watch it if I didn't like it at all. But I would say over the last year, they stopped caring about Rampage as far as like giving us like at one point, Rampage was their new show that they really cared about, where we got Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage. We got Britt Baker in Pittsburgh in the main event against Red Velvet. And then, in the first year of Rampage, they had CM Punk's debut in AEW on an episode of Rampage. They really cared about Rampage because it was a 3rd hour. But I think that now that you have 2 hours of Dynamite, 2 hours of Collision, the hour of AEW content in the week that doesn't get as much efforts creatively, as well as building stories, as well as giving matches that people want to see, is Rampage. It's basically getting the flack of, I basically have this kid over here, this kid over here. I'm not caring about the middle child. That's basically what Rampage has become. It's become a neglected middle child of AEW.
I get it. And the reason I asked, I wanted to come into this. Whatever AEW, this is my opinion. Whatever AEW decides to go, wherever they go, and whatever they decide to do, I just hope that whatever they do in regards to Dynamite, Rampage, Collision, whatever, I just hope that whatever platform they have to be able to do this, they make it mean something. Because I wouldn't want to feel the way you feel about Rampage. You understand? So
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is story make me as a viewer want to invest into that 1 hour. Make me a viewer want to invest into Dynamite. So no matter where they go, whatever they're gonna be, Fox, whatever, doesn't matter. As long as they make me as a viewer want to invest my time to watch, grab me in. That's all I ask for.
I agree with you 100% there. And like Frantic World said, it's become like the AEW version of Velocity, and not good Velocity, like Velocity when it was like the redheaded stepchild of WWE. That's what Rampage has become. And it's sad that it's become that, but you can just take that out of the whole spectrum like there, because you also got ROH to worry about. And ROH, with this new WBD deal, hopefully that gets a spot on Max streaming service, and maybe getting rid of Rampage and just doing a studio show over on Fox that promotes everything in AEW, where you basically are giving it up to Tony Schiavone and his ability to promote more than you're doing like structuring a whole hour show of wrestling matches or angles or storytelling. You could just focus on just pushing your product, maybe having one match or two matches there. I think that's a better use of time, because then you can have more creativity over on Ring of Honor. I think it's just a lot for one person to do. So I'm hoping that also with an extra show, Tony Khan will say, hey, here, Christopher Daniels, here, Jimmy Jacobs, you take care of Ring of Honor. I don't need to be involved in Ring of Honor. It's something that I own, but I don't need to do the creative to Ring of Honor. You have so many creative people backstage that can take that over. What do you think, Josh?
I mean, the same. Like I wouldn't want to go to another platform to be like what Rampage has been, because I know Rampage has been like very, but then also like the direction where Rampage has always been up and down, right? Like they started off hot, then it cooled down, and then they did some nice things, like they were utilizing the Lucha Libre more, right? They're doing some nice things with that, and then they just got completely away from that. So it's kind of like one of those things where, I understand where it's like, yeah, I think it's time to like, cut the cord on this, because we saw it with AEW Dark and Elevation, right? It was the same kind of thing where it was like, it was some content, but then it's like, if we're just getting 12 matches and they're all squash matches, then what's the point of this? Like, that's how it kind of came off. So I mean, I understand it. They go to another platform. I mean, I agree with Rich there. Like, I want it to mean something. Like, I just don't want it to be like another throw-in. Just because it's also on Fox. So I know Fox is probably going to care, because if they're going to be invested and they're putting in money, then, Fox is probably going to request more stuff. But then, Fox is also in a position where they might have a little bit more leverage of what they might want, because, there are, it'll be a new network to them. So, it might benefit Fox as well when it comes to that, as in like them pulling more of the strings when it comes to what they want.
Yeah, agreed there. But we got to move on to more news in AEW coming out of All Out. Like I said, that two big angles saw Daniel Garcia and MJF with the Avalanche Power Driver, as well as what happened in the Lights Out Steel Cage matchup. And it's been reported that MJF and Swerve Strickland are reportedly set to take time off following their matches at AEW All Out. MJF was assaulted by Daniel Garcia after their match at the pay-per-view, while Swerve Strickland lost his brutal Lights Out Steel Cage matchup against Hangman Adam Page. It was noted on the Wrestling Observer Radio that both stars are set to take time off from TV for a bit. In regards to MJF, it was reported that the angle was an injury angle and that the heel is going to be gone for a while, quote unquote. It was reported by Ibu of WrestlePurist that MJF's time off is to film a movie. As for Swerve Strickland, the report notes that Swerve, there was word that Strickland was going to get time off for an unknown reason after he signed his new deal with AEW at All In. The Wrestling Observer newsletter says that it remains up in the air whether or not Strickland will appear at AEW Wrestle Dream, which happens in his hometown of home state of Washington. More specifically, it happens to be in Swerve's hometown of Tacoma, and the latest is Swerve might not appear at this time. So that is a rather big news. But following up with the whole MJF and Daniel Garcia, Ebu of WrestlePirates also reported on Saturday following All Out after MJF picked up the win over Daniel Garcia that originally Garcia was considered for the win at AEW All Out. However, due to Garcia not yet signing a new contract with All Elite Wrestling, the result was changed. Fightful Select confirmed both of those, that Garcia was considered for the win and that those in AEW say he's not signed a new deal. Garcia has been offered a new deal, and AEW were hopeful he signed it before All Out, which didn't happen. One top talent had been under the impression this summer that Garcia was staying, but that is far from a guarantee. AEW believes that WWE has interest in Garcia, but they have not heard if any contact has been made as of yet. According to Ebu of WrestlePirates, WWE is quote-unquote extremely horny to sign Daniel Garcia. That's Ebu's words, not mine. Triple H reportedly believes that Daniel Garcia is the quote-unquote next great technical wrestler, with comparisons to Roderick Strong and Bryan Danielson. Wrestling Observer newsletter on Friday did confirm that Garcia still has not signed a new deal with AEW at this time. This is something that we've been hearing kind of back and forth reports in regards to Daniel Garcia. Rich, what is your kind of perspective of Daniel Garcia and where he's at in his very young career so far? And where do you think would be kind of the place you would like to see Garcia be, whether it be AEW or potentially making a fresh move over to WWE?
I like Daniel Garcia. I like his work. I think he would do great anywhere, whether it's WWE, whether it's AEW. I think he's gonna do good as long as you give him the opportunity to be able to do that. But yeah, I like it. He can go anywhere. I think he's that talented that you give him whatever, he's gonna go, he's gonna perform, and he's gonna entertain us. Yeah. I think where it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to be successful regardless, especially if both companies are kind of having a bidding war between him right now. We got Big Man Dogs in the chat who says, "Watch all the WWE stands glaze Garcia the second he signs."
Oh my god! I mean, he's not wrong.
Question for you, Josh. What do you think about MJF and Garcia and Swerve taking some time off? And who do you think that additional TV time, because MJF and Swerve have kind of been two top stars for the company that get a lot of TV time on your Dynamites, your Collisions. Where do you think who should kind of fill the void in that regard?
When it comes to Swerve taking time off, I think it's more than deserving. He's been carrying the company. He's been the face of the company for a while. You know, every time they were doing media, they were doing news outlets, he was there. Every time they called him, he was there. He was appearing. You know, when they did the announcement for All In for next year, he was there. And you know, he's never complained. So, you know, more deserving when it comes to that. Like, yeah, you know, take some time off, rest up, and then, you know, you come back, you know, the spot's still yours. You know, MJF, I didn't hear about that. I think he was filming something, so that was kind of expected. But MJF is going to be MJF no matter what. He comes back in. That's again, he's another guy that, yeah, instantly it's a spot. He's there. As far as what they go from here, weekly, I mean, you know, we have like some things that are going on, right? We have like Moxley storyline that's going on. It's very interesting because we're still trying to figure out like where is he going with this. I mean, he said why they turned on Danielson, right? They talked about that, so you still have that kind of angle. or they might add somebody into that. We don't know yet. And then we have the most interesting for me is the Okada concussion thing. I think they should put more focus on that, because you saw that face. People kept aiding not only in All Out, but the TV, this past week, like when they had the face-to-face, and then dropped his line again to Don Callis. That was great stuff, and I think they should build something off of that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I like that moment.
Agree with you.
With Okada. I agree. I like that moment. I'm intrigued. And that's what I mean. Like, I want to see what happens next with them. Even at All Out, they had that little moment. They didn't do too much. You get what I'm saying? At All Out, they did just enough to sort of leave us hanging. And now, as a viewer, I want to see more. So I am into that match. I hope it happens. I hope they do something good.
Yeah, 100%. When they had their face off, I was like, that was the point of this matchup, is to tease Okada and to catch them. That's the money matchup for this Continental title. And then finally, in regards to news coming out of All Out, as previously reported, Swerve Strickland lost to Hangman Adam Page in the main event, lights out steel cage matchup. The match had a mixed reaction, as we've talked about earlier, with some deeming it too violent. In a post on Twitter, Swerve questioned why people were offended by the latest matchup in his feud with Hangman. He wrote, "Unsanctioned. What did you expect? Go where others won't go." Meanwhile, someone who did not like all the violence at All Out and spoke out about it was Mercedes Moné, and said that she had mixed feelings on AEW All Out, particularly when it came to the extreme violence on the show. In the latest edition of her Money Mag newsletter, the TBS champion wrote, "All Out was extremely violent, and honestly, Bryan Danielson's stuff was tough to watch. I have mixed emotions. When done right, that kind of stuff can tear a roof off like Daniels did. However, I wouldn't want my brother Joshua to watch stuff like that, or kids for that matter. Let's face it, wrestling is multi-generational. When I do signings, I greet so many parents and their children. Growing up, I didn't have a father, so it especially warms my heart to meet families and hear how much their wrestling viewing experiences and memories mean to them. Then again, there is an audience that loves the extreme, and you want to cater to them. When you see your favorite stars going to the extreme, you may want to blame the promotion. Honestly, though, it's the talent who will usually make the calls in the ring. While I credit talent who go to the extreme in terms of violence inflicted upon themselves for their passion and courage, I also want talent to have longevity and to graduate from this world healthy and able to function. Our bodies go through enough with all the bumps, not to mention the travel and schedule. Personally, I'm at a place career-wise where I'd like to avoid extreme matches, unless it's a true big value to add to the company. However, Mercedes did have some praise for one match at All Out, and that was the street fight between Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. She said on the matchup, "Okay, here I am talking out of both sides of my mouth. After sharing some strong thoughts on extreme wrestling, I'll state hands down, Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale's street fight absolutely stole the show. It was one of the best women's matches of the year and one of the greatest women's street fight matches I have ever seen. I mean it. I couldn't take my eyes off the monitor. Chris and Willow hooked me from go. Our women's division just keeps ascending." I appreciate her acknowledging that she's talking out of both sides of the mouth. I appreciate that. That's very honest of her to be like, I didn't like all the violence, but I loved Chris Statlander. Gotta appreciate that from Mercedes. But let's talk about AEW Dynamite this week, coming off the heels of All Out. And overall, it was a lot of big changes to Grand Slam in 2 weeks' time in New York City. They did 716,000 viewers, which was up from last week's number. The show featured Jon Moxley cutting a tremendous promo following his attack on Bryan Danielson, where he said the time for diplomacy has ended and it's time for war. This led to Moxley, Marina Shafir, Pac, and Claudio Castagnoli attacking Commander and Private Party to interrupt a six-man tag later in the show. Finally, Darby Allin called out Moxley after weeks of him wanting to talk, and the two men had a deeply compelling exchange where Darby told the story of Moxley being his hero until what he did to Bryan at All Out, and Moxley telling Darby that he isn't ready to be the AEW World Champion and wanting his title shot for himself. Darby will now face Moxley for the title shot at a Grand Slam, since he said that Bryan is indisposed, or so we thought. Because Nigel McGuinness later in the show announced that Tony Khan has revealed Nigel will face Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam if he is medically cleared. It will be the night prior to their 15th anniversary of their last match in New York City at ROH Glory by Honor in 2009. You also had Ricochet was in action once again, and he defeated Sammy Guevara in a very good bout. Post-match, Peace Mortos attacked Ricochet, only for Sammy to make the save. Jack Perry picked up a win over Leo Rush to retain the TNT Championship. Meanwhile, Mariah May defeated Queen Aminata in an AEW Women's World Title Eliminator matchup. Post-match, Mariah says the only thing missing from her championship celebration is Mina Shirakawa, and calling her back to AEW. Hangman Adam Page says he has no regrets following his actions in the Lights Out Steel Cage matchup with Swerve, and before being confronted by Jeff Jarrett, who he quickly assaulted. Don Callis cashed in his favor with Will Ospreay by asking him to team with Kyle Fletcher in the first ever tag team Casino Gauntlet, which they went on to win in the show's main event by beating Dante Martin of Top Flight. That also featured FTR, The Acclaimed, MXM, Grizzled Young Veterans, and the most popular team of them all, the Outrunners. Ospreay and Fletcher will now move on to face Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the Young Bucks, for the AEW World Tag Team titles at Grand Slam. Okay, so I'll just echo what I said on the review this week to Rich and Josh here. I liked a lot of this episode, but a lot of this episode just confused the hell out of me of why did we need like big logic holds in all this stuff? Like the best part of the show for me was Darby and Moxley's promo exchange, because it felt like a compelling conversation between two guys. And then they immediately just threw a whole bunch of logic holes into that whole thing by announcing that Bryan Danielson is going to wrestle a match at Grand Slam. And this is a problem that I think starts back from all the way back at the Royal Rampage, where Darby earned his opportunity, where you didn't need Darby to earn that opportunity because he just wrestled the Blood and Guts and got a TNT title match at All In. And then you immediately 2 days later have him win the Royal Rampage to get an AEW World title matchup at Grand Slam. Then that's all confusing within itself. But then you made it more confusing because now he's not getting that title shot at Grand Slam, and he just looks like a dumb baby face for listening to Moxley and putting his title shot that he earns nothing if he wins. He doesn't earn anything. He's just beating a guy that he's never beaten before. I wish they would have like talked more about that, but Nigel and Bryan in a vacuum, yes, it's a match I want to see. I've been asking for this match for years, but it did not need to happen here. I mean, I don't know about y'all. What did y'all think about the storytelling and the shakeups in regards to what's going to go down at Grand Slam on this show? Rich?
I could agree with you on that in regards to Bryan Danielson and McGuinness, because of, again, my opinion, because of what's going on with Darby and Moxley wanting that shot at the title. That McGuinness thing could have waited and wait till the match with either Darby or Moxley go up against Bryan Danielson happened. You know, that I agree with you on there. One thing that confused me about the show, I'm just, and I'm talking as a viewer here, the viewer here, is that I'm wondering what they're trying to do with Moxley and the whole group. What's her name? Is it Shafir or something?
Yeah, Marina Shafir.
Marina Shafir and Pac. I'm curious as a viewer on what they trying to do with that. I'm curious of the tag team that just won, the Offspring tag team, and what's his name? His partner?
Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher. Like, I'm curious on how that's gonna work, knowing how Don Callis operates. You know, that's a good thing right there as a viewer, from a viewer's standpoint. I feel like those are the things that got me intrigued of the night, my opinion. You know.
Yeah, I get where they were going with, from like the backstage segment with the Don Callis family and everything, and I get that they wanted to kind of like to revise and get more interest in the tag team division with the tag team Casino Gauntlet, but I think that it kind of just exposed the issues that they've had with the tag team division, with how many teams that came out and got no reaction, like Undisputed Kingdom, the Righteous, like the Outrunners, because they got such a big pop because they were like local talent in Kentucky. It made them stand out more than all these teams that I know they probably wanted to put more of a spotlight on. And the fact that Will Ospreay won in his first tag team matchup with Kyle Fletcher, me and Jimmy joked about it enough on our AEW Dynamite review. We just said, like, Ospreay just big league the whole entire tag team division. Like, he just said, I'm bigger than all of you. What you gonna do, bruv? Because Hollywood Will Ospreay has come through and taken down the whole tag team division. Josh, what did you think about this week's Dynamite?
I like the matches for Grand Slam. I like that they did those announcements. I do agree with some of the logicals behind certain things, like the Moxley Darby thing, and then having McGuinness facing Danielson. Even though as a fan, I was like, holy shit, this is actually happening. Like, I was definitely excited for that. So, but I can understand the other side of things of like, maybe it could have waited for this. The only thing I could think of is that, you know, maybe they're trying to boost up ticket sales for Grand Slam, because that is a big arena. That's the only thing I could think of when it comes to that. So again, you know, like, yeah, it could wait. At the same time, I do get the business aspect of things of like, you know, if they feel like they want more seats, McGuinness and Danielson is a matchup that people do want to see because of their rivalry. You know, if people have been familiar with that. But then, but then it's also good to see McGuinness. You know, like, I never expected him to wrestle again, and then, you know, when we saw him in All In, he looked really good. He looked in incredible shape. He was moving good. So regardless, you know, I'm looking forward to that. As for, you know, like it being Darby and Danielson, that like originally, the only thing I could think of was that because they implemented Mox into the situation, they got away from that because of that. And then you have McGuinness challenging Danielson. I think the McGuinness thing, I think that's more of like a heel tactic. He knows Danielson this week. He knows he's not 100%. So he's going to take his advantage now to try to face him. So in that aspect, I could get it, but I think they should have maybe explained that a little bit better.
Yeah, I would understand it more if it was McGuinness challenging Bryan and not Tony Khan making the matchup after we just had a scheduled AEW title match scrapped.
Yeah. Like, they should have done that. So I do agree when it comes to that. Like, it could have been mapped up better. But regardless, I'm pretty excited for the matches, the matchups. Because Mox and Darby, every time they paired up, is always, you know, they've always done great together. Again, you know, and then we're getting Danielson and McGuinness. We haven't seen that in how many years? That's like 15 years, I believe, 15 years that we have not seen them in the ring. So, I mean, in that aspect is exciting, but I do agree with like how we got there could have been better.
That match with McGuinness and Bryan Danielson, that needs a pay-per-view moment. That needs time to tell a story. On TV, when you're up against time, it's just sometimes it's not gonna feel right with that type of match. So my opinion, that's too early. They need to save that for a pay-per-view.
It's fair. Like, I think it's all fair. Like me personally, like, do I prefer it on the pay-per-view? Yes. Should have done this maybe at Wrestle Dream? Absolutely. But on the other end, like, you know, I do get it. I think this is more of like a ticket thing. I think it's more, again, there's no sources. I have no idea. I'm just taking a guess because Arthur Ashe
that's the same thing I thought. That's the same thing.
It's a big arena.
They've been struggling. They've been struggling because it's only like 4,000 out. And you remember the first Grand Slam had 20,000 people in there, and they only have 4,000 tickets sold right now.
Yeah, so I think it's more of that. But again, there's no confirmation, and AEW is they're not gonna openly say that. But I think that's just more of like my opinion when it comes to that. Because honestly, like if this was like another random show, like if say like if this wasn't in New York City, does this match happen? Probably not.
Also true. Also true.
Maybe they're teasing us because I haven't heard from Bryan yet.
That's
you
true.
know, so maybe they want us to assume that it's gonna happen, and when Grand Slam comes, it ain't happening. They probably pull the rug out from under us. You know?
Oh, you mean a bait and switch?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think they can afford to do that.
You never know. You never know, because
you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
But it's like you know how fans feel about bait and switches. It's not gonna go very well.
yeah. But you know, again, you never know where they're trying to take the story. So that's why I can say that could happen. Because again, to me, that's a match that you need to save for a pay-per-view. And Grand Slam, I feel like they'll probably switch it. I feel like we haven't heard a response from Bryan.
No, but they also made it official. Like I think once like one of the matches started, they basically confirmed like it was official. Again, the only thing I could think of is the ticket sales, and then also I think Sid mentioned the anniversary thing. I think that's why they're doing it there at that time. I think it's more of a sentimental thing than like, hey, let's put this on pay-per-view and get more buys off of that, because I think they probably feel more confident with their pay-per-views, like their pay-per-view buys, that regardless, people are going to buy it regardless. I think that's how they look at it. Again, it's just more of assuming things,
you're right, because like I said before, the pay-per-view business is the only part of their business that hasn't gone down. They've gone down in the ratings, they've gone down in like ticket sales for attendance, but they've gone up on pay-per-view buys.
So I think it's more, so I think they're more confident that, regardless of what we put on the pay-per-view, it's gonna do well. So I think they're trying to focus more on like the grand, but then also it is their last Grand Slam in New York City because it's going to become a pay-per-view. So maybe that's why they're doing it again. Like, you know, but I'm excited regardless. I'm excited. I want to see how these guys both work. And then see McGuinness, like in All In, he looked great. I want to see how he does singles, because I think if it goes well, we're gonna see more of him.
Our producer in the back doing a humble brag that he'll be front row for Nigel versus Bryan. Living vicariously through you. We got a super chat donation. Thank you so much once again, Chuck Berries. He says MJF and Swerve on hiatus now. MJF versus Swerve at All In Arlington. Thoughts? I could see it. That's definitely a big stage where you could do that matchup there first time in AEW. But I kind of see or kind of hope probably that's the place to do Swerve versus Hangman for the AEW World Championship. Because how violent that Lights Out Steel Cage match was, you can't keep doing violent matches between the two. The only thing left for that rivalry is to face on a big stage in a stadium for the AEW World Championship, for the richest prize, for really the whole basis of the rivalry. The whole basis of the rivalry was Swerve looked at Hangman and was like, if I had those opportunities, I would have been the first ever African-American AEW World Champion. I would have been a AEW World Champion like you are. And now he's used that rivalry to become an AEW World Champion. And then Hangman was part of the reason why he lost it. So they need to have that one-on-one matchup for the championship, and a stadium is the best place to do that.
Agree.
But let's get to the news coming out of Dynamite. Thank you once again, Chuck Berries, for the super chat donation. As previously reported, the Totally Harmless Concept LLC recently filed a trademark for the Hurt Syndicate, and also previously dead trademarks related to MVP and Ghetto Strong Style. Fightful Select had a report on AEW potentially bringing a revamped version of the now defunct WWE stable, The Hurt Business, to the promotion as the Hurt Syndicate. Per the report, AEW has had discussions with former WWE superstars Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. However, it's reportedly unknown if a deal with talent is done or imminent. Fightful also notes that there have been discussions and plans to continue a faction similar to the Hurt Business outside of WWE, so it appears AEW might have plans to use the Hurt Syndicate later on. Lashley and MVP recently departed from WWE, becoming free agents a short while ago, while Shelton Benjamin was released by WWE in September 2023 and is currently an unrestricted free agent. I'll start with you, Rich. What do you think about the potential of a Hurt Syndicate, Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin moving over to AEW, and where do you see them fitting in what AEW already offers?
I love it. I think that is great for AEW, and I'm glad that these three are going to be able to do what we hoped when they were in WWE. Because look, everybody, all the fans were behind it. They wanted to see more and more. They wanted them to get the opportunities to prove that this faction could work. And the fans were behind it. And the rug was just pulled out from under them. So you know what? I'm looking forward to it. I think this is a plus for AEW to take advantage of this, to bring these guys together and finally give us what we've been wanting as a viewer. These three to become one of the biggest factions in professional wrestling.
Couldn't agree more. Like that, you take, if there's any stable that deserves an opportunity to kind of really meet their potential, it's the Hurt Business. Like the Hurt Business was one of the hottest things in WWE in the pandemic era, and they were just cut short. They got their legs cut from under them way too soon. But other AEW news, the Outrunners are apparently hits outside of Kentucky. Just because they got a big pop in Kentucky doesn't mean they're not a hit outside of it in terms of merchandise sales. WrestleNomics posted the weekly merchandise rankings from last week, which noted that the tag team consisting of Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd ranked at number 8 among AEW acts in estimated shop AEW merchandise sales. The tag team ranked above Bryan Danielson, Britt Baker, and Swerve Strickland in the top 10. Behind the AEW brand itself, Will Ospreay, MJF, ROH as a brand, Mariah May, Darby Allin, and pieces by Rob Schamberger. The team made reference to their merchandise sales in a segment on AEW Rampage when they talked about picking up their first AEW victory on Collision last week. That segment ended with the two being attacked by Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir. But Josh, what do you think about the Outrunners becoming a hit in AEW, where otherwise they would just be jobbers for the tag team division, but apparently
surprising. I can see that they're likable guys. Like, you know, every time they came out, I was like, oh, you know, they have a unique look. They kind of have like that 80s vibe, kind of people really enjoy, like when it comes to the theme, the look. I think people like stuff like that. And, you know, they found a way to make it work, right? Sometimes in the wrestling business, this is what it's about, right? You do something that's unique. If it catches the fans, then it's only going to benefit you. And, you know, that reaction they got on Wednesday, I was like, yo, where did this come from? And then even I was like, yo, these guys are over. Like, they got the loudest reaction during the gauntlet match. So, I mean, it's good for them, right? I like stories like that. I like stuff that, you know, again, if these guys, they're putting in the work, and I think people see that. People see the effort too. I think that's what's kind of had the fans behind them. So, you know, like if it's helping them not only on TV but even in their pockets, by all means, I think it's a great thing.
100% agree with that. And then finally, from AEW news, Adam Cole has been out of action for nearly a year after breaking his foot in multiple places at last year's Grand Slam. While he had been appearing on TV since then, that stopped after Double or Nothing back in May. According to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Cole was backstage at AEW All Out this past Saturday, even though he obviously didn't appear on the pay-per-view. As for his health, the report notes that Cole was walking around fine. However, it doesn't appear as though there is a return date for him at this time. So we will do Adam Cole. I did want to ask Rich, how long do we have you for? Because I don't want to hold you too long with us here. We're about to get into WWE, but I wanted to ask you how much time you got with us.
You know what? I'm actually really enjoying. Yeah, you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. I'm actually really enjoying this, and you guys got me, man. Whatever, as long as it takes.
Oh,
let's do
awesome.
It. That's what we love to hear. We love to hear that. But very quickly, we'll finish up with the converse here. Last night, you had AEW Rampage. The show featured Konosuke Takeshita defeating Action Andretti in a pretty good main event. You also had Roderick Strong beat Beef in Beef's first AEW matchup. Camille picked up a win over Robin Renegade. The Outcasts of Saraya and Harley Cameron, they defeated the Hex of Marty Bell and Allison Kay in tag team action. Post-match, Jamie Hayter came down to get her hands on Saraya. Jamie Hayter legit looked like Donna from That 70s Show in this outfit. Like,
she's been wearing like brighter colors. Like I noticed that too. She's been wearing like very like brighter colors, like Austin Power-ish kind of colors. Like I've been noticing that.
Yeah. She tried to get her hands on Saraya, but she only got her hands on Harley Cameron here. And the Conglomeration defeated opener. As far as the rest of the AEW news, AEW's got a pretty big matchup coming up tomorrow. Actually, before the Jacksonville Jaguars home opener, AEW will host a tag team matchup on Sunday. AEW announced on Friday that Sammy Guevara and Hologram will take on Matt Taven and the Beast Mortals in a 2 out of 3 falls match to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month at the team's home game against the Cleveland Browns. So this is what we're talking about. Like, this is how you cross promote. Like, use the NFL and the Jacksonville Jaguars in that way. You own both companies, Tony Khan. This is the type of cross promotion you get. And like Rich was saying earlier, it gets more eyes on AEW for people that regularly probably are not AEW or even wrestling fans, you know? But that is all from AEW. But finishing up on the converse, ROH TV this week on Honor Club. The show featured Leo Rush beating Rocky Romero in a good main event. You also had Atlantis Jr. defeated Peter Avalon in the opener. Queen Aminata beat Harley Cameron in a fine matchup, while Sammy Guevara defeated Ari Davari of the Premier Athletes. Billy Starks held her own minion empowerment meeting with Athena, where she snapped that Lexi Nair was getting all the credit for everything Billy has done for Athena and the ROH Women's World Championship, but the Fallen Goddess ignored Stark's concerns, further developing that ongoing storyline, as it seems like we're going to get Billy Starks versus Athena Part 2. But Athena is about to pass Samoa Joe as the longest reigning champion in Ring of Honor history. I believe she will pass it either Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So great honor for her. We'll talk about that in the weeks to come. Athena making history as the longest reigning ROH champion of all time. But finally, we've made it over to the WWE verse, as last night was the season premiere of WWE SmackDown. The show featured the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, defeating Solo Sikoa in a fun steel cage match to retain the undisputed WWE Championship. Meanwhile, post-match, you had the Bloodline jump Cody until of course the original, the OTC, the original tribal chief Roman Reigns returned to make the save. This led to Solo and Jacob Fatu making a challenge to Cody and Roman for bad blood. Despite Cody saying that he was done with the bloodline and saying that he wouldn't sign a contract to team up with Roman Reigns, Reigns came out and proclaimed that he hasn't changed. This is his show. This is his WWE, which led to Cody taking the exception, coming out to say that it was his WWE until WrestleMania. Before the two men could fight each other, it was Solo and Jacob Fatu who came out and looked like they were gonna get involved with these two, only for Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, the tag team champions, to jump the baby faces from behind. But Reigns and Rhodes fought them off and eventually signed the contract for a tag team match against the Bloodline at Bad Blood. The rest of the show saw Andrade beat Carmelo Hayes in another good matchup. Post-match, LA Knight announced he will face Andrade for the U.S. Championship next week. Kevin Owens rejected his replacement partner of Ricky for Randy Orton to beat 8-Town Down Under in a good tag team matchup. Nia Jax announced she will defend the WWE Women's Championship at Bad Blood, which brought out Bayley, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton. This led to Jax suggesting a tag team matchup where if Bayley and Naomi win, whoever scores the pin will face Nia at Bad Blood, while if Nia and Tiffany win, whoever is pinned leaves SmackDown on next week's show. So big stakes, and it was the premiere. We got a new logo on the USA Network, new theme song by Megan Thee Stallion. Any thoughts on what went down on SmackDown last night, especially with Roman Reigns back on the show? And apparently we got a new generation mega powers with Roman and Cody. What did you think, Rich?
I enjoyed the show, even the way it started with this cage match. I thought the cage match was really good. Of course, there was like little things I probably would have done differently as a worker, but overall, you got the audience. I loved the moment that we got, the little tease with Roman and Jacob.
Yeah,
man. I felt it. Like I got goosebumps when I was watching it. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about right there. Like those moments right there, that's where the story is. That's how you're going to get fans hooked, you know? And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that match. A good opener. I love how the whole new setup with the logo. Everything I enjoyed last night. And look, let me tell you, because of my schedule, I'm really not, especially because SmackDown's on a Friday, and most of the time I'm doing bookings. So it's really hard for me to catch SmackDown. And last night I didn't have a booking, and I was able to finally catch SmackDown last night for the first time in a long time. And I loved it, man. I really enjoyed it. I really don't have nothing bad to say about it. They did catch me, you know. The only thing was, like, do you recall the women's match with Piper and Michin? Right, Michin,
yeah.
is it?
Yeah, that got the short end of the stick because it followed the cage match and everything.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, I think because of the whole moment that happened with after the cage match, that took some extra time. And I think that girl's match was cut short, because I even looked at my watch when that match started, when they finally went live. We were already 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
So I think I that was like the only match where I was like, damn, they got, like you said, they got the short end of the stick. Everything was good. The tag match with A-Town Down Under and Kevin Owens with the mystery partner, I thought that it was a good match after Randy came out and we saw it was Randy. I thought it was cool. I thought the moment was cool for that guy Ricky. It was cool for him. Great for him, you know, because I bet you after that moment right there, people are gonna know who he is. And I found out too after that he's actually from a tag team called the Midnight Heat.
Yeah, and they have a match with FTR coming up, so that match is probably gonna get more attention now that he was on.
Yeah,
SmackDown.
more exactly. So, great for them. I'm glad that they was able to get that moment. So yeah, it was cool. Even leading up to the very end with Nick Aldis talking about needing the signatures. I thought that was cool. You got me hooked as a viewer, wanting to watch and see what happens next. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Even how it ended with them finally signing it, and now it's both of them, and even the tease with Cody and Roman finally facing off, saying that it hasn't been yours since WrestleMania. Like, that was cool, man. Like, that was cool to see. I really enjoyed it. I haven't really been able to enjoy weekly wrestling in a long time because of how my schedule is with bookings and stuff like that. So it was really cool to enjoy SmackDown.
Yeah, I liked the feel. It was a different feel. It went longer than it usually did on Fox, because Fox, they had to end like 2 minutes before the 10 p.m. because 10 p.m. was the news afterwards. It had a 6-minute overrun for the show, so that helped a lot. And I agree with you. I loved all the Cody, Roman, and the Bloodline stuff. My only nitpick is really kayfabe wise. I was like, Cody, what are you doing? What are you talking about? You're done with the Bloodline, bro. The only time you're in the number one storyline on this show is when you're with the Bloodline. Stop it. Stop messing with me. That's me just criticizing Cody as a kayfabe character. Don't say you're done with the Bloodline. You know you're not done with the Blood. They just attacked you after the cage match. You needed Tama and the fact that Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and because I'm an old school wrestling fan, they very much are becoming what Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase was in Legacy. They are just guys to bump around so Solo and Jacob Fatu don't have to take these bumps from these baby faces. But I like that whole dynamic of, like you said, Roman and Cody. I also agree with you. The cage match was way better than I expected. Like Big Man Dogs is saying here, he says, I expected it to be ass. I was very down on the SummerSlam matchup between Solo and Cody. I thought that Solo wasn't ready for that moment there, but this felt like Solo has gotten comfortable in his role, and Cody put on a virtuoso job of like being the babyface, taking the risk. He bled a little bit in the matchup, did a Cody cutter almost up the cage wall, did the big dive off the top of the cage with the cross body. Like, he put his body on the line. Went all out to make that an entertaining matchup, and it definitely was. Josh, what did you think about everything that went down on SmackDown season premiere, and Cody teaming up with Roman coming up at Bad Blood?
SmackDown was good. Definitely had a different feel moving from Fox to back to USA. Definitely felt a little bit different, not only with the intro and all that stuff. It was just an overall different feel. The match itself, the cage match, was good. Which, I mean, I had a feeling was going to be good because they needed that. They needed something. They needed element for the match. The cage match was right. It kind of fit Solo's style. Because if we would have got another regular match, it would have done more harm for Solo than it already did from SummerSlam. So the cage match, I thought was a fair move. And I did notice, I was like, yeah, like this thing is like, when all that was done, it was like 40 minutes. Like, that's pretty long. But again, SmackDown, they usually tend to do that on SmackDown, because remember when The Rock was on and then he cut his promo and all that stuff? That was 45 minutes? And it actually removed one of the matches because he did that. And we kind of did see that with the women's match here. Like, it did kind of suffer from that. And then the ending with them teaming up, I'm fine with it. I think it's a cool thing, But you also kind of prolong Jacob and a matchup between Jacob and Roman because I'm like, if they would have done that for Bad Blood, I think people would be excited to see that. But I'm like, nah, this needs not only more time, but I think a bigger stage for that kind of matchup. So I think they're gonna wait on that. But overall, I mean, it was a good SmackDown.
Like, yeah, I had to throw the thumbs up there with that whole thing with Jacob and Roman. That definitely needs a bigger stage, 100%. So that's why, like, I love the tease, and I know later on as we continue to watch SmackDown and weeks or months go by, we're gonna see more of those, and us as viewers is gonna be itching for that moment to finally come. And when it does, it's going to do very well, I believe.
Yeah, it's either going to pop a big rating or more people is going to watch it on a PLE. And welcome to my side, big man dogs. I don't know if you watch every week, but I said this a month ago, didn't I, Josh? That Cody is having Macho Man 1988 title run.
I mean, to be fair, I think to be fair, I think Big Man is just kissing your ass.
Well, it's okay. It's okay. I just want my credit. I just wanted him to fix this comment and said, like SP3 said a month ago, Cody is having his Macho Man title run. This is Macho Man 1988 where the real star Hulk Hogan just showed back up in Roman Reigns. But it really feels like I talked about it last night on the SmackDown review on Sports Kita Wrestle Binge. It really feels like this is another time in WWE history. We had this with Hogan and Macho, two over baby faces kind of fighting for that number one spot. We had it with Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan in 1990, 1991. Then you had it with Austin and Rock in the Attitude Era, and now this is the first time in over 20 years we have that type of situation with Roman and Cody. Like, because we had people in the comments last night saying, "Oh, Cody needs to turn heel because he's not going to be as over as Roman." It's like Cody is selling more merch than he ever has. Like, keep it going.
Not gonna happen.
You want both of them to be babyface as long as possible.
No, yeah, like it's not gonna happen. Like, it's like people gotta realize, like, Cody, being heel, that was great for what he was doing, like a Ring of Honor. Like, those were great things, but he's too much on John Cena-esque to turn him heel. He's selling a ton of merch, and they probably have more stacked up waiting to release. It's just not gonna happen, and it's okay. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to be heel. Like, don't do it because it needs to be like, no, right? Because we were waiting at that. Remember that happened with Roman. Roman needs to turn heel so everybody can like him. Roman needs to turn heel, and then when it finally happened, guess what? People loved it because it was a cool thing. Like, it wasn't forced. It wasn't generic. It meant something. So I'm like, no, don't turn him heel because Roman's not going to be there for very long. We know Roman has a part-time schedule. That's okay. So to turn him heel for what exactly? Just doesn't make any sense.
I agree. Doesn't make any sense. He's doing good right now. He's doing good.
It's doing awesome business for them right now. So I agree with that. Like, you got to keep them both babyface, and it's going to be a big money matchup. Now WWE has a plethora of big money matchups because we also got X last night. Who's the top? The reason why they said, I guess the person was like, oh, the reason I said that because WWE doesn't have a number one heel right now. I was like, yes, it does, and we're going to get into that. It's Gunther. Gunther still hasn't faced Cody or Roman like that. They are building them on a completely opposite show from them. So in a year or 2 years from now, Cody versus Gunther is a big matchup. Gunther versus Roman Reigns is a big matchup. Like, they have a plethora of big matchups. They're building Gunther as that number one heel to face these guys. He's going to be a very big key to the future.
And their face run, like, they're different kind of faces. Like Cody and Roman, their face things are very different. So it's like, again, it's just not necessary. You don't need to turn the guy heel just because, this guy's face is like, no, like, now they were very similar, like, they were very like kid friendly, kissing babies kind of faces. You probably have a better argument, but they're more like different kind of heel, like baby faces again. Like, Cody caters to more like the children. And Roman is more he's catering to like the adults like us because it's a cool thing. Like he's a cool baby face and people love him, right? And you see everybody on the street when they're always throwing up the ones. That's because of Roman Reigns. Like it's a different kind of thing that I'm like, it doesn't need to happen. He says being just on the no, you're not. You was not on this wave. SP3 said it first. Don't take credit.
Love Josh beefing with the chat. We got next news coming out. The big news of the week for WWE was they've made another big signing as of late. They've gotten Julia, Stephanie Vicaire, and now we got the Motor City Machine Guns confirmed to be coming to the WWE. They are WWE bound, according to new reports. Both PW Insider and Fightful have confirmed the original report from PW Nexus that Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have signed a deal with WWE. PW Insider reports that the current plan is to have the tag team debut on NXT's Chicago debut on October 1st for the CW network. They reportedly received a quote-unquote great deal from WWE and are quote-unquote thrilled to be working in NXT. They are expected to build to a matchup with current NXT tag team champions Axiom and Nathan Frazier and have an extended run in NXT before eventually moving to the main roster. Alongside this, the report notes that their deals with WWE give them flexibility post-wrestling to become trainers for the company. The Machine Guns are the most decorated tag team in TNA history and left the promotion in March. They've worked a number of independent dates since then, and speculation was high as to their potentially joining WWE or AEW, both of whom were interested in them. The two are three-time TNA Impact World Tag Team Champions together, and between the two of them have a TNA Heavyweight World Championship reigns apiece, as well as a total of 11 X Division Championship reigns, 10 for Sabin and 1 for Shelley. So big signing, and the Motor City Machine Guns is probably one of the most influential tag teams and workers individually themselves of the modern era of this generation of professional wrestlers. You as a worker, what do you think as the Motor City Machine Guns, the legacy of the I think we lost him. We lost him there. But we'll see if he can get back in whenever he's back. But Josh, what do you think about the Motor City Machine Guns signing with WWE, seemingly being confirmed here?
I mean, it's good for them. This is something that they've been wanting for a while, and I think the time is now, right? They want to get a big money deal. Time to do it is now. So if they got a better deal with WWE and they feel more comfortable getting that money deal, by all means, right? Me personally, like, would I prefer them to be in AEW? Yeah, because I think it fits more their style. But again, I'm never gonna be upset of somebody getting a better deal if they're getting more money, if there's a position of another job within WWE, because I know Chris Sabin was the coach when he first got to WWE. It wasn't as a talent; it was a coach. He was a coach for them. So if that's what they want to do, by all means, I mean it's good for them. Me personally, like I'm more for that than anything.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people kind of mix emotions about them going to NXT, but I think it is the best move for them because NXT right now has, in my opinion, not only the best team in the company, but the best tag team of 2024 is Axiom and Nathan Frazier, because the AEW tag team division has slacked off. They've taken the foot off the gas as far as producing great tag team matches and great tag team runs over in AEW. TNA Impact, they got the ABC, which is a great tag team, but and we'll talk about that later, they lost the tag team titles after just winning it like 2 months ago. They lost it last night, so they haven't put all the spotlight and focus on them. And then you have other places the best tag team of the year has been Axiom and Nathan Frazier. So that's the tag team I most want to see Motor City Machine Guns go up against. So it makes a world of, and because of their experience, they're going to be so beneficial to NXT, especially starting a new era over on the CW. So it makes a whole bunch of sense for them to start there.
Yeah, and it's not only that, but it's also because Motor City Machine Guns kind of their target audience is probably the people who are watching NXT. So for like a TV aspect, that makes the most sense, right? And then we also have the rumors of the Lucha Bros that they're going up to the main roster. Like that was the last word. That's what they wanted, and they also have more experience when it comes to that. So like both situations, they make sense of where both directions are going. So I think Motor City starting at NXT, it does make sense. But I also understand why people probably would want the main roster because they are older, they're already there, like they have that experience. But besides that, I mean, it is what it is, and they're gonna face off against a great tag team by all means. I mean, that's what the match people have been wanting. Like, so just do it.
Yeah, and it just makes a whole world of difference. Like our producer put, MCMG X NXT. You have that full partnership with TNA. The best introduction for them is now in NXT because you could say we now got the greatest TNA tag team of all time. We're getting the greatest TNA tag team of all time, and they're not just here because of the partnership. They're here because they're here to stay in NXT. Like Joe Hendry can say, "Oh, I'm going to be coming back and forth," but he's still a TNA guy. Jordan Grace has made multiple appearances, but she's still a TNA gal. This is one where you could say, we got the best two guys in TNA history, the best tag team ever, two former TNA world champions, and we're bringing them in as big signings to NXT in this new era. Rich, do we have you here now? You good?
I'm sorry, man. I'm having like internet problems. I keep disconnecting and all that stuff. So I'm finally on right now. Hopefully I'm good.
What do you think about the Motor City Machine Guns signing with WWE and starting out over on NXT, starting with the CW debut?
I think that tag team is a great addition to NXT. You mentioned it before that they're a tag team that has been in professional wrestling for a long, long time. They've won many tag team titles. This is definitely a great opportunity for them to show everybody why they won those titles before. So this is good. I'm rooting for them. I hope they do very well with NXT.
I 100% agree there. This is a big bonus for NXT as well. And I'll ask you, we asked this question like a month ago, Josh. Does this now give WWE the edge in the free agency kind of bidding war that we've seen between WWE and AEW this year?
Maybe it does, because again, like when we spoke about it, I think where AEW announced, I mean, basically what they did was, they took a lot of the bigger free agents, and that's what they did. So they took more main event talent. And I think with WWE, they basically are signing people that they're, like basically are covering all the tracks, right? So they needed more tag team stuff. They got a new tag team, right? That's more what it is, right? For NXT, they needed more women, more experienced women. That's what they got. They got 3 new signings for the women. So I think it's more of like, do I think it puts them over the top? Maybe by a little bit, because they covered more of the needs that they needed.
Yeah, they're WWE, like I said, they're number one. They're like a Super Bowl team that is basically filling their holes before the next season. Like they got one of the greatest tag teams of all time. They got one of AEW's best tag teams might be coming over in the Lucha Bros. Stephanie Vicaire, Julia Delta coming into NXT. You got Hikuleo is still probably another factor in the whole Bloodline story with Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa joining up over there. So they've done a good job of like filling a lot of different holes, and they still got like main event talent in the future, like a Jacob Fatu that we mentioned earlier. year that they picked up this year. So yeah, they've done a really great job, and I would probably give them the edge because of how much they filled in holes all up and down the roster. Whereas, like you said, Josh, AEW's Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada earlier this year. But let's talk about more news here. SmackDown started their USA era with their debut last night. Meanwhile, NXT, like we said, is going to be debuting on the CW network. A new report had some details on some changes planned for the shows. Fightful Select reports that SmackDown was expected to get a new theme song on the USA network. The site reports that the word inside the legit artist, it was later revealed that was Megan Thee Stallion with a member of some K-pop group. I forget the name. I forget the name of the group. But he's featured on that track, Never Play, which is the new theme for SmackDown. It was also noted that SmackDown will have a bit more flexibility in terms of its end time. The show has gone off the air around 9:58 p.m. Eastern on Fox, and it would not interfere with the local news. But USA Network is more flexible. Even Raw has not generally had overruns in years. USA Network is said to have sent out promotional packages for influencers and streamers, something that is common for show premieres. Meanwhile, in regards to NXT, the show is actually less likely to have overruns when it moves to the CW. NXT has regularly gone over 10 p.m. Eastern time slot on USA, and that is likely to come to an end on the CW. The company has announce a stacked card for the NXT debut on the CW network on October 1st, and WWE sources believe they can do their highest numbers in about a year. The outlet also notes that the Performance Center shows for NXT are expected to continue after their runs in Chicago and St. Louis for the first 2 weeks. It's interesting times for WWE. I'm interested to see how different the NXT is going to feel. But NXT has already announced they got the Miz TV, they got Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair showing up on the show. They got CM Punk in Chicago, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that they want to hit that 1 million mark on the CW network. And I can see them doing it the first week. I don't know how they would sustain it. I don't know. What do you think about the move of NXT going over to the CW, Rich?
I think it's great. Again, it's no matter where a company goes, as long as they have that platform there and to be able to make it mean something so people could tune in and continue to watch and get invested into the story. That's all I care about, especially as a viewer. Because if I'm home and I want to watch it, I want to be able to invest. Like, I want to invest the time. If I'm not into it, I'm just going to be like, you know what, let's change the channel or, stuff like that. So I'm excited for them. I hope they do well because NXT is a great product in its own way. So, yeah, man, I love it. I love the changes that's going on in professional wrestling in general,
Yeah, it's a good move, especially if like the two top companies are making the moves that they're doing and getting these media rights deal. It's a trickle down effect. It's gonna bring everybody else up, and we've seen it with like TNA and their partnership with NXT. TNA has been doing some of their best business as far as like ticket sales in like the last couple of years. Like last night's Victory Road was one of their highest selling events of the year. So it's showing that trickle down effect, and we're going to see it and whatnot. CMLL's had a great year business wise, so we're seeing it across the board.
I agree.
But let's talk more about what we talked about earlier with the comment in the chat. The PW Illustrated 500 dropped this week. 34th annual Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500 list came out, and number one, topping the list this year, is the undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes. PWI released their rankings for this year's list, with Cody topping the 2024 list at number one. Seth Rollins topped the list last year. Here is the top 10 and how they rounded out. Cody Rhodes was number 1. Former AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland was number 2. Number 3 is the current AEW International Champion Will Ospreay, while former World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins was number 4. Number 5 is the current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Tetsuya Naito. Number 6 was the former World Champion Damian Priest. Former AEW World Champion MJF at number 7. Former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley at number 8. Current World Champion for Monday Night Raw, Gunther at number 9. And number 10, Mystico of CMLL, the historic welterweight champion. Pro Wrestling Illustrated's criteria for this year's list featured an evaluation period of August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2024, and it's based on a wrestler's kayfabe win and loss records, championships, tournament wins, influence and prestige within their promotion or industry, technical ability, competition, and activity. Also, the list prioritizes success in singles competition and in heavyweight singles accolades. During the evaluation period, Cody Rhodes went on to become WWE Undisputed Tag Team Champion with Jey Uso. He won the 20 years. He also unseated Roman Reigns, beating him to win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 40, ending Roman Reigns' epic title reign, which lasted 1,316 days. Josh, we know you as a big Cody Rhodes fan. What did you think about him topping the PWI500 and just the top 10 within itself? What did you think about the list?
I was very surprised that Cody was number 1. But I was also happy for him. You know, when he's spoken about this, when he says like, oh, when talent tells you that they don't care about this, they're lying to you. They really care. And the PWI for him being number 1, I think was a personal goal for him. So he reached it. He got, you know, he reached this goal of being number 1. And, you know, I think it's deserving. It's very deserving. You know, like we've been saying, you know, he's been putting in the work. He's been carrying WWE in a lot of aspects, not only in the matches, but business wise. So again, it's deserving. And I know people have been saying, you know, like there's been like the debate of like, oh, maybe Swerve should have won it or whatever the case may be. I mean, Swerve got number 2. I think that's more than fair. Would I have been cool to see him number 1? Yeah, but I think, you know, no matter what, I think 1 and 2, I think that's fair. I think them being number 1 and 2, if you flip flop it, I'm fine with either one. As for the overall list itself, usually when it comes to the list itself, I try not to take it seriously because then we have these weird debates where it's like, why is this person on, whatever the case may be, right? It's like for years people have been complaining about it because there's always been like an AEW person or somebody else. It's never been like WWE. So that's why the outroar has always been like big when it comes to that. Like the year, when was it? When Drew didn't win it, I'm trying to remember what year. I forgot who won it that year, but I know when a lot of people were like, oh, the year Moxley won it. People are like, oh, Drew McIntyre should have won it, right? But then when you look at both, when you compared both of them, I think Moxley had like a stronger case. Even though it was Drew, it was more of like, wow, like he did have a really good run for like what they were given during the pandemic. Both of them had to deal with that. But I think Drew did have a great title run. I think it was great. But you know, I think Mox did edge him out, and people were like such an uproar about that. You know, and I'm also a big Drew McIntyre fan myself, but I was like, Mox winning was more fair when it comes to that. So usually I try not to go too deep into that stuff. But if I'm really criticizing it, like say that if I'm like in a real aspect of things, should Seth have been number 4? He's missed a lot of time when it comes to that. Damian Priest being number 6, I could see why he was number 6, but I know there was people like maybe he shouldn't have been number 6. I think top 10 fair. Again, it makes for a good discussion. Like if you're level-headed and all this stuff, right? It makes for great conversation when it comes to that. I think where it becomes very negative is when people harbor into this a little too much when it comes to like taking it very seriously, or whatever the case may be. Me personally, like whoever's number one, I'm always cool with it. Like if they really explain it. I think for me, it's more of like the independent talent. When I see them on the list and it means something to them, I think that's a bigger. I think to me that means more. Like if somebody sees it and they're like 300th and something, I think that's a big accomplishment. I think being on that list means something to a lot of people. And there's others who wouldn't care about it, and that I think that's all fair, right? People could take it in as how they want it. I think it's all about perspective of how you take it in and having good positive discussions about it.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Big Man Dogs saying, shouldn't Gunther be in the top 3? Gunther was just Intercontinental Champion. He didn't win the World Heavyweight Championship until outside the evaluation period. Whereas Will Ospreay, who's in the top 3 with Swerve and Cody, he won the AEW International Championship. He was IWGP United States Champion at the time. He went to like semifinals of the G1 Climax. He had a whole bunch of success in New Japan. He's had a whole bunch of success in AEW. And he's put on some of the best matches of the year. Whereas you get that kayfabe and a mid-card champion. So being in the top 10 is an accomplishment within itself, because of for on time, guys who were like Intercontinental US champion, TNT champion in AEW, they were not in the top 10. But Gunther had such a great year. That's why he's in the top. But let's say explain kind of the I know there's like other people that people will say, but I agree with what you guys have said. Like this is one of the years where I agree with most of the people that are in the top 10. I have no complaints. Maybe I would have put one person over the other, but I have no complaints about the people within that top 10 at all, in my opinion. Yes, with other kind of short news here to get to before we get into Monday Night Raw. According to PW Nexus, there have been some rumblings about Def Rebel will not have their contract with WWE renewed when it expires. However, this is not yet confirmed. No details are known as to when exactly their deals are up with the company. Mainstream artists contributing to both WWE entrances and show themes is expected to become the norm moving forward after the introduction of the Megan Thee Stallion theme for SmackDown. How important to you is theme music as a worker yourself, Rich? And what have you thought about kind of the fan outcry in regards to not agreeing with a lot of Def Rebel music and choices?
I think the entrance music is very important, because that has to do with part of that first impression when the fans see you, when you first walk out through that curtain. That has something to do with it. So I think it's very important. In regards to specifically the Dead Rebel thing, I really don't care, man. As long as there's someone there making some great music for the talent, that's all that matters at the end of the day. That's just what I think. I really don't care who does it, as long as it's dope, as long as it matches my character when I walk out through that curtain. That's all I care about.
What do you use as theme music?
I have this instrumental that I found on YouTube, and it's just an instrumental. I put it on, I played it, I said, oh, this sounds cool. And that was it. I've been stuck with that one ever since. I sent it to the promoter, and he was like, all right, whatever. And I've been stuck with it ever since, because I actually get a good reaction when I come out with it. So I just stuck with it for since probably I started wrestling. So
sometimes that'd be the best stuff. Look at MJF. MJF found his as like a YouTube instrumental, and he's used it throughout the indies and now in AEW.
Yeah, and that's how it went with me right now. So
nice. Fightful Select had an update on the alleged incident that Josh laughed about the last time we talked about it between Randy Orton and Machine Gun Kelly. MGK spoke on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast about having a run-in with Orton, where he said, "I was in the ring just coming to Logan to see what Orton. I remember seeing Randy Orton talk shit about me. There was a point where I was like, I'm going to practice a new version of myself. 3, 2, 1. Fuck that. Ah, man, fuck you." All my boys were sitting there stunned. Is this real? I don't know what's happening. The amount of people that pin me as the aggressor in every situation I'm in are so wrong. According to Fightful's report, no footage corroborates MGK account of what took place, and people have also tried looking for the footage. Also, Fightful notes that every WWE talent and staff member they spoke to never heard about an alleged incident between MGK and Orton until the rapper's appearance on Impulsive last month. It's reportedly being assumed that MGK was working an angle with his comments, and the people around him say it appears that MGK was enjoying himself. Additionally, Fightful notes that people who asked Orton about the situation were told outright that it didn't happen. Josh, you were right, basically. You said it was bullshit from the start, and it seems that no one knows what the hell MGK is talking about.
I mean, I kind of figured. I mean, again, this is a guy who likes to rattle, rough up feathers for whatever reason, for any kind of attention, and that's all it was, right? We saw with Eminem, right, and then he got squashed by Eminem to the point that he moved to genre music. He don't even do rap music no more. He does rock music because he got his ass whooped. And now, he tried to start with Randy Orton, and all it took for Orton, Orton wasn't even on final form. He just said, "Yeah, this is cap," and that's all it was.
Orton took Soulja Boy more seriously than MGK.
That's what makes it funny. That's what makes it more funny. He just said, "What? Like, what? What is this?"
Yeah, it was. Let me tell you, when I mentioned earlier about the code, there's like a code, a certain thing you do with the wrestlers and the fans. That right there, that's a perfect example of why there's a code when it comes to the wrestlers conversating or dealing with fans because of stuff like that happened. And MGK is he's just bugging, bro. That's what I think. He's just bugging. And like you said, they've interviewed everybody else around, all the other wrestlers, and they got nothing. So that just shows you that it was just nonsense.
What do you guys think, since we're talking about Logan Paul here? What do y'all think about the Logan Paul Kevin Nash situation that's up earlier this week with Kevin Nash basically saying that Logan Paul isn't one of the boys, that he hasn't kind of like earned his stripes but he's making like big money, and he doesn't know the difference between shoot and a work. And then Logan Paul kind of clapping back at Kevin Nash, saying that he never heard of him, and he's just mad at him because he's as good as all the other wrestlers and he's making money to do it. I found it all funny that Kevin Nash, of all people, is complaining about someone making a lot of money. Mr. Do less, get paid more. There ain't no thing as show friends. It's all about show business. It's complaining about somebody else's bag. It's just hilarious. All of that. What did you think, Rich, about that back and forth between Nash and Logan Paul?
I think let me see. I'm trying to say it as nice as possible, but Nash was speaking the way what all the workers were thinking when we saw that footage. Because look, if you go back and you watch the footage when it happened with Hogan and Logan Paul, you saw Hogan's face. Hogan's face said it all. Hogan's face said, I think he was thinking exactly what Nash said at that moment by his face alone. Like, how did this guy not know? Listen, those are the things that you're supposed to know. Those are the certain terminologies that you're supposed to know when you get into the world of professional wrestling, especially when you become number one, you become a worker. You have to know those things. So I understand from the perspective of Nash. And when it comes to Logan Paul coming back at him, I think Logan Paul should just have a little bit, he should just be a little bit more understanding, because he needs to understand that the reason he's able to have the contract that he has and the things he's about to do is because of guys like Kevin Nash that did it when nobody else was doing it. So I think he needs to have a little bit more respect for the business and more respect for Kevin Nash, because at the end of the day, Kevin Nash is a legend in our business and you should respect him. Don't take his opinion personally. Just take it and continue to move forward. That's what I think. If this is not a shoot.
Yeah, it could be working us. It could be working us. Nash
Yeah.
is known for working us as well. Josh, any thoughts on the Nash and Logan Paul situation?
I mean, I get I get Kevin Nash's point, but it's more funny that it is coming from Kevin Nash because of what he's about. But again, if anybody has the experience, it is Kevin Nash. So in a sense, I get it. But then also, like with us, you're right. When it comes to Logan Paul, we've been saying it for a while. Like Logan Paul, he does great things in the ring. Like, we've always given him credit when he does something spectacular in the ring. That's never been the issue. The issue is more the outside stuff of Logan Paul, of how he carries himself and how he conducts himself. I think that's always been like the biggest issue with Logan Paul. And that's why he comes off like the guy that he is. So when it comes to like when he does stuff like this, or like when he does like these content or anything like this, he needs to be more self-aware of what he's doing, regardless of his status. He needs to be more self-aware, and that's always been his biggest issue. Even before wrestling, it's always been he lacks self-awareness of what he's doing, and that's why he always gets himself into trouble. Now he's not getting himself into trouble when it comes to this, but now you're having people within the industry look at you funny, and your reputation, it could carry you. In the wrestling industry, it does matter. Your reputation does carry with you for the rest of your life when it comes to that. So I think that's where he needs to be more mindful of how he approaches things, he conducts himself, and then even the response. I thought the response from him was trash. Because it was like, yeah, bro, I know you're trying to probably be a heel, you're trying to like work, but it's like sometimes it's better off to say nothing. Kevin Nash had this response. Logan Paul didn't really need to respond. He didn't need to. If he would have been quiet, none of this is a thing. It would have been like, Kevin Nash is just upset again. But now this kind of justifies what Kevin Nash said because of his response. So it's like sometimes it's better off just to like, bro, it's nothing. Just no sell it. Move forward. Focus on what you're doing. And if you want to take his advice, fine. I think that's a good thing. If you don't, then you're gonna get more stuff like this, and you're gonna have to either deal with it or find a way to improve so you don't have to deal with it.
Very well said.
This week we had Monday Night Raw from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The show was down in the ratings against Monday Night Football, 1.430 million viewers, but it was a good show. The show featured the returning Bret the Hitman Hart in his hometown, being confronted by the World Heavyweight Champion GUNTHER, who told the WWE Hall of Famer that he is his second all-time favorite next to Bill Goldberg in a great troll job. This led to Sami Zayn coming down to defend Bret, but Gunther once again denied his challenge for the called him a coward. Sami fought off Gunther to stand tall with Bret. Jey Uso picked up the win in the finals of the number one Contenders Intercontinental Championship Tournament, been defeating Pete Dunne, Braun Strowman, and Ilya Dragunov in a great main event matchup. We had a standoff between Braun and Jey to close the show. The Wyatt Six picked up the win over the American-made stable in a fun eight-person street fight to open the show. Finn Balor called out Damian Priest to challenge him to a match at Bad Blood before the Judgment Day jumped Priest. Rhea Ripley came down to try to make the save, but was attacked from behind by Liv Morgan. Judgment Day finally laying out the Terror Twins using Rhea's crutch until Jey Uso made the save. Dominic Mysterio of the Judgment Day picked up a win over Dragon Lee, while Finn Balor was disqualified against Rey Mysterio, but laid him out in the post-match. So a good week for the Judgment Day. We'll get Josh's thoughts on that in a minute. And of course, you had Drew McIntyre celebrated his beatdown on CM Punk from last week before confronting his friend Wade Barrett for trying to stop him the week prior. This led to Raw General Manager Adam Pearce coming down to inform McIntyre that he will face CM Punk in a Hell in a Cell matchup coming up at Bad Blood. Rich, what did you think about the use of Bret Hart on this show in Calgary, getting the big response from the fans and his confrontation with Gunther?
I thought it was great to have Bret there. Of course, if you're in Canada, you have to include Bret Hart. I was so happy that he got that response too when he came out. It just shows that they didn't forget about him. They still show him some love. So I was happy to see that response for him. I'm also a big fan of Bret myself growing up. So I was happy for him. When it came to the whole segment, when Gunther said about his all-time favorite being Goldberg, I'm not gonna lie, I died laughing, dude. Like, I lost it. I think I was wiping tears and everything of how much I laughed, because who expected that? Like, who expected Gunther to say that? Like, that was that, and that's good. I'm saying that in a good manner, you know. So that was cool, man. That was a good moment. And then Sammy coming out and for the save like that and doing that, like, that whole segment was cool. I was invested the whole way, all the way to the very end. That was that'll be stuck in my mind for a while though. That was funny, man.
Oh, I loved it. I loved this so much. That's what I said. Gunther is the number one heel in WWE right now. Ever since the Damian Priest storyline, and then his stuff with Randy Orton, and then stuff like this, he's proved he's the number one heel in this company right now. Josh, the Judgment Day had a good week. Finally, a good week. They stood tall over the Terror Twins. What do you think about the Judgment Day? Well, we're doing this a week-by-week basis, Rich, because Josh is famously a new Judgment Day hater, as he has called Finn Balor and the rest of the Judgment Day bums ever since Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest left.
They've been, because it's been like lopsided, right? It's been lopsided. The feud's been lopsided, and they finally had a good week. I was like, wow, guys, good job. It took like 8 weeks, but finally, you got like, you're like 2-6. Let's keep improving. That's how it's been, because they lost a tag match at Bash of Berlin, and I think the next night did they lose again or something? Didn't something happen again that they lost?
They lost to Jey and Priest.
See, like they lost, like they lose a lot. Like they haven't won none of the matches, and they've gotten like the upper hand in 2 feuds, but everything else has been like it's been lopsided. But I'm like, finally. They need something if you want, because right now the problem too on Raw is that, you know, like we have the Wyatt Six and you know, what is it? What are they called? American Made? Like
American
that's
Made.
also that's another lopsided feud. Like the Wyatt Six have won not only the matches, but it's been a clean sweep. Like there's no gentleman sweep. It's been a clean sweep. And it's like, they're kind of, getting that with the Terror Twins and the Judgment Day. So I think there needs to be more balance when it comes to that. It's like, if you're going to have like these kind of feuds or like these kind of like stables going at it, whatever the case may be, there needs to be some, it needs to be pretty level-headed to the point it's like, all right, I could really enjoy this. If something is like lopsided like this, that's why sometimes it's hard for me to be invested in. Even though Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, they fucking, no matter what, they work so well. Damian, so happy to see the level that he's on right now because he's really proven himself. Like, this is one guy where we're like, he really had to prove himself, and he's done more than that. Like, he's not only over with the crowd, but his in-ring stuff has gotten a lot better, and he feels more confident. Like, his talking, it's more confident. Like, he feels like a confident guy. Stuff like that, I'm really happy about. So, like, the pairing is not bad. It's just I want more, like, if this is going to be a real feud or what the case may be, or like what's the end goal of everything, it needs to be more like leveled. Like, can't keep being lopsided, especially when you have 4 people in the group and then only 2, and the people in the 2 groups are always winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense. Probably the biggest news in Raw is the fact that Raw is reverting back to a 2-hour format for the first time. It was announced on Monday's show that Raw will go to a 2-hour format starting on October 5th and running through the end of the year on the USA Network. This marks the first time Raw has been at 2 hours since it switched to the 3-hour format, with the 1000th episode on the July 23rd, 2012 episode of Monday Night Raw. The 2-hour format will coincide with WWE's extended deal with the USA Network that carries them through the rest of 2024 into the new year when they move to Netflix. At this time, there's no word on whether the show will remain 2 hours when it moves to Netflix or go back to the 3 hours. PW Insider had an update on the format change. According to the report, the 2-hour broadcast change was a part of WWE's short-term deal with the USA Network. WWE needed to make a short-term deal for where to air Raw in the final quarter of 2024, since Raw won't be moving to Netflix until January 2025. WWE's main goal was to reportedly keep running Raw weekly through the rest of 2024. With what WWE is set to make from Netflix for the new streaming deal, what WWE makes from the short-term deal on USA Network was reportedly not viewed as important as the Netflix deal. This way, Raw will continue running weekly until the Netflix move on January 5th, 2025. Additionally, WWE reportedly wanted to remain a strong broadcast partner with USA, who they're still in business with because SmackDown moved to USA Network starting with last night's show. PW Insider notes that it's unknown if WWE plans to return to a 3-hour format when Raw makes the move to Netflix. It's said that some within WWE have played coy when asked about the subject, and others have flexible with the show's length depending on what is required on a given week. While WWE is returning to the 2-hour format, it appears like the change will be short-lived, though, as Dave Meltzer during Tuesday's Wrestling Observer Radio, Meltzer stated that WWE will be a 3-hour show again when it moves to Netflix in January. He said, and I quote, "It's a 3-hour show when they move to Netflix. Additionally, Raw going back to 2-hour runtime was a USA Network call and not a WWE call." As previously noted, they made that short-term deal to keep them through on USA Network so they can run weekly, and WWE has yet to announce the runtime for when they move to Netflix. WWE Raw is moving to Netflix starting in January, but that doesn't mean you'll be able to watch the live program ad-free, as the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that WWE's flagship show will still have commercials when it debuts on Netflix. Netflix is hoping to add more commercials to live and pre-recorded programs and believe Raw is a good place to test it out. The thought is that wrestling fans are used to commercials on their broadcasts. However, just because they are ads doesn't mean they'll be intrusive. WWE has more long the show runs, as well as how many commercials will run. Some ads could be quick to get back to the show faster, while others may be closer to what airs on linear television. The runtime for the show, previously reported to going back to 3 hours, will actually vary depending on the plans for that particular episode. This will especially help to make main events feel more unpredictable. Rich, what do you think about a 3-hour format for a professional wrestling show, and how is that able to like sustain? You know, we just talked about how All Out in a lot of cases you felt like it was too long. What do you think about a week-to-week television show and the ability to have a 3-hour format?
I think it depends on what story they're trying to tell because of the time needed for it. So, because from a viewer standpoint, watching it sometimes the 3 hours ain't that bad. It flows nicely. But then there's sometimes where it's like, man, this could have went 2 hours. You could have told the story within 2 hours, you know? So I guess it all depends on again, like the story they're trying to say. But me personally, I would rather a 2-hour show, because I'm all about wanting to grab the fans and wanting them to come back for more, you know, not trying to give them everything all at once. You know, I want them to tune in next week and then the week after that and the week after that, you know? So I'm all for that, you know? And if you ask me from a worker's perspective, I think it's better for 2 hours because I could do my thing and go home right after, man. I'm tired of waiting the whole show, waiting in the back for this show to end and get paid, you know? So, yeah.
I understand that where that's coming from. It's like for us, you know, doing a 9 to 5, Josh, working an 8-hour shift in comparison to a 6-hour shift. I want to go home.
Exactly.
Exactly. As previously noted, Jey Uso secured a title shot at Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship with his win on Monday. According to Dave Meltzer on Tuesday, Wrestling Observer Radio, their future Intercontinental title match will not be happening at WWE Bad Blood next month. Instead, the matchup will reportedly happen on TV instead. WWE likes to keep the 5-match card for its premium live events, and one of the future matchups will reportedly be a title bout between Gunther and Sami Zayn. WWE has not yet announced when the slated title bout between Braun Breaker and Jey Uso will take place on Monday Night Raw as of yet, but we shall see. But I think that it's already looking like we're going to get 6 matches at Bad Blood. What do you think about another premium live event with no Jey Uso?
I don't know. Like, you know, they have a plan, and, you know, unfortunately, he's just not on their plans for PLE. They feel like he's more valuable on Raw, and I know this is something that they've been talking about in general, where they want to keep the PLE short. They feel like it's doing better for them, and they want to stack up the shows, right? Like, that's what they're saying, right? Oh, we could stack up a SmackDown, we could stack up a Raw, and maybe they feel like he's more valuable on TV when it comes to like ratings and Raw, and, you know, him hyping up the crowd. But him, now what? This, you said this is back to back, right? Back to back PLEs he's not going to be on.
3 in a row. He wasn't on SummerSlam. He wasn't on Bash in Berlin, and now he's not going to be on Bad Blood.
Yeah, and I think, and that's pretty telling. 3, that's a lot. I don't know, because remember, he wasn't really getting good results. Like, from what we see, like he gets the crowd going, right? We give him, like, he gets a crowd hype, all that stuff. But then once the bell rings, you know, that's been his issue. And I think that's what it sounds like it's coming down to. Maybe it's that. It is telling.
I think he's way too popular and moves way too much merch where you can't leave him off the premium live events too.
He does.
Like,
yeah. 3 in a
I
row.
go to live shows and all I see is the Yeet shirt everywhere.
Yeah, that's kind of like, and that's why it's a little weird to me because it's just like, yeah, he might not have the best matches, but I'm like, he's moving the most merch. Imagine buying a Yeet shirt and I'm like, oh wait, he's not on tonight. Why did I buy this shirt?
Yeah, me, I don't know.
Hey, what do you think about that, Rich?
I don't think it has to do with his wrestling because I don't think it has to do with the wrestling because when he has a match, the fans are invested, and that's always the most important thing when a match is going on is you want the fans to get involved and you want to tell the story. But I don't think it's that. I think it's just, I could be wrong. I'm just saying my opinion from watching.
Yeah.
Maybe there could also be another scenario where, bro, there's just too many stars on the show, and it's just, they're not sure creatively on where to put him. That it could be that too. I could be wrong. That's just an assumption that I'm making. And also, I think, see, that's so weird because I think that match should be on Bad Blood. Like, I'm a little bummed out knowing that he's not gonna be on that pay-per-view. So it is a little weird. I could agree with you guys. Like, it is a little weird, but yeah.
Because they also been pushing the narrative of like the Steiner family and and his family, kind of like the history of that. So I thought that would be on Bad Blood. I think that would be a good matchup on Bad Blood. So it's just a little weird, and I don't know, like because remember, like when me and Sid have been talking about like Jay's work in the ring, we have been critical on it. So I think that's why I'm leaning more of like the wrestling stuff, because Jey Uso, it's not that he's bad. I think what it is that Jay has been in singles competition for so long now that sometimes certain guys need to elevate themselves when it comes to like their work, right? I'm not telling him to be like a ring general. That's not what it is. But I think that Jay has gotten to the point where it's like, all right, guys, you're good enough to be a single star now, right? And I think he's proven himself on that aspect. But there's times where I think when I'm watching Jay, sometimes his wrestling does fall flat, and it's unfortunate because again, like he's very likable and he's got himself over, and he's one guy that we didn't know he had this in him, and he found a way, ever since he started working with Roman Reigns and they had that feud. Jay has got himself completely over, and now he's got himself over with his Yeet thing. It's just that now, like when we're putting more under a microscope, we've seen like some of his matches have been gone great. Like we saw WrestleMania, how him and Jimmy, that match went. It was probably the worst match of WrestleMania. And then we had the other match, his what was the title match he had with Damien? Was it Damien? Right?
Him and Damien Priest.
Yeah, and him and Damien Priest. And I thought that was probably the weakest match on that card. So it's kind of one of those things where that's why I'm leaning more towards with the wrestling stuff, because we kind of have seen like it's not like he's having rough performances, but there's something within his work that he's missing at this point.
I think I could agree with you on there to a certain extent, because I'm gonna say that I think is all about how he's telling the story. And what I mean by that, with us as workers, we have to tell a story using our bodies, not much talking. So I feel like his choice of moves maybe could be he's not telling the story properly, and that's making you as a viewer not wanting to invest, because you're just like, he's just not telling the right story to you.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
All right, final two notes before we finish up with WWE with NXT. FIFO Select notes that WWE has filed a trademark to bring back Saturday night's main event on Monday, September 9th with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Saturday night's main event debuted a series of television specials that ran on NBC throughout the 1980s and early 1990s. The series was revived in 2006 with 5 more specials that ran until 2008. Also later Saturday night's main event branding in 2022. And WrestleVotes had reported that there will be a special on NBC in December that they will eventually announce and run tickets for. So might be getting some Saturday night main event back in our lives. And then finally, we may be done with as many house shows as we've been doing from WWE, as it looks they are cutting back significantly starting this fall. During an appearance on the Goldman Sachs Communicapo Technology and Conference on Monday, TKO President Mark Shapiro spoke on plans for WWE to cut back on live events next year. He said on TKO's plan, we're cutting events at WWE. We're taking our low margin, marginally profitable events, untelevised events that Vince put in place to grow the brand, right? You're taking the show on the road. We got to go to every city we can get to grow the WWE brand. Well, the WWE brand, while we still have to grow it, it's on fire right now. On it being less necessary to put on marginally profitable live non-televised shows. We don't need to carry these marginally profitable events. Andrew Shamir, our CFO, and Nick Khan at WWE have been hands-on involved with cutting back those events, trimming those events. What was 300 events last year will be roughly 250 this year, and next year we're going to be closer to 200. WWE currently has a handful of live events scheduled before the holiday season, but that's going to be a big shift. And I think it's something that even before the pandemic, you could see that WWE was heading in this direction because the live events weren't making a lot of money prior to the pandemic. They've made a lot more live events since going back on the road in 2021, but it's more in everything in wrestling, especially with WWE. Television property. It's become a television product. So you want to run more events for television, whether it be pay-per-views or TV, and less for non-televised. But I mean, I think the downside for like the WWE guys is that they get less reps for the people that need those types. So what did you think about this report here with WWE cutting back, Rich?
I thought it was a good decision. Again, from a business standpoint, I could understand why they're doing that. It's understandable. And I feel like it's going to help the talent as well, because like you mentioned, it just gives them a little bit more time to rest. You know, I saw, I don't know if you recall, there was an interview with Flair, and I believe he was on the Breakfast Club, and he mentioned about like how WWE realized that the talent needs time to rest sometimes because they put their body through so much. So I think with them making the cut of shows, I feel like this is what's going to give them those times to rest so they can come back and put on a good product for the fans and for the company. You know, I can give you a quick example is that there was a period, and this is just independence. You know, I haven't been blessed yet and got my big break yet, but just independence here, there was a period, I believe, of 2 years where I was working. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, literally consistently. With like every weekend, I was booked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and literally within that time frame, you feel the wear and tear on your body. You need time. I needed time to rest just to get those aches and pains out of the way. So from experience, I feel like this is great for the guys, man, to really get the rest they need so they could perform well.
That makes a lot of sense. I would think it more of like getting the reps, but you're absolutely right. You got to rest of your body, especially if you're going to be on television consistently and be on the pay-per-views and stuff like that. So makes a lot of sense in that perspective. But finally, with WWE, let's finish off with NXT from this past week. The show featured Trick Williams defeating Pete Dunne in an entertaining last man standing match to advance to face Ethan Page for the NXT Championship on the October 1st CW launch special. Julia made her NXT debut, in-ring debut, with a win over Chelsea Green. TNA's Hammerstone answered Oba Femi's NXT North American Championship Open Challenge in a win for Femi. TNA Knockouts World Champion Jordan Grace and NXT's Sol Ruka fought to a no contest when Rosemary and Wendy Chu cut the lights and attacked Grace. Wes Lee challenged Zachary Wentz to a street fight for the CW launch special. Rich Holland beat Duke Hudson in his pursuit to destroy Chase U. Axiom and Nathan Frazier versus the Street Profits ended in chaos when the Bloodline made a surprise appearance to beat up all four men. Very surprising appearance from the Bloodline here. The Bloodline making a surprise appearance on NXT was a secret and was closely guarded during the TV tapings. The group appeared attacking the Street Profits, and it's to bring that feel that anything can happen with NXT moving over to the CW. And speaking of which, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that WWE has a specific goal in mind when it comes to the amount of viewers they get for the NXT's debut on the CW. According to the report, the goal is to get 1 million viewers for the October 1st episode. This is why the company is loading up the card, including main roster stars. And they have 2 big title matches with Julia versus Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship and Ethan Championship, as well as Wesley versus Zachary Wentz in a street fight. And with TNA's Hammerstone appearing on the episode this past week, it was noted by Fightful Select that it was a surprise appearance, but that Hammerstone was rehearsing in plain sight before that taping to keep his debut a secret. But good opportunity for Hammerstone, friend of the channel. I've interviewed him in the past, so good on seeing him on NXT this week. And let's finish New Japan Pro Wrestling's Road to Destruction, which featured day 2 had Jeff Cobb versus Yota Tsuji for the NJPW World TV Championship in the main event. They fought to a 15-minute time limit draw. Post-match, it was Ren Narita who came out and attacked Jeff Cobb to set up his next TV championship matchup. Day 3 had Hanare beating Hiromu Takahashi in a terrific main event to retain the Never Openweight Championship. Post-match, you had Shingo Takagi came out to confront and challenge Hanare for the at the end of the month. Day 4 had Doki defeating Taiji Ishimori in a main event to retain the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Post-match, former tag team partner Yoshinobu Kanemaru attacked Doki to set up his next championship challenger. After that, to end the show, Sanada and Taichi beat TMDK's Zack Sabre Jr. and Kosei Fujita, with Sanada actually pinning the G1 Climax 34 winner to set up a singles match coming up at Royal Quest in October. And then finally, this morning, you had Day 5 featuring Hiroshi Tanahashi, Bolton Oleg, and Toru Yano beating the House of the Torture to retain the Never Openweight 6-man tag team championship. So good week on the road to destruction as we head to destruction at the end of September. Of course, we're on Tru Heel Heat, always covering New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll have preview and review of that show at the end of the month. And then finally, we had TNA Impact and TNA Victory Road. TNA Impact this week featured the Hardys defeating The System in a rock-solid main event. Steve Macklin beat Hammerstone in a pretty fun opener. Heather Reckless made her debut in Impact in a win over Giselle Shaw in her final appearance for TNA Wrestling. while Ash by Elegance picked up a win against Zaya Brookslide thanks to outside interference from Reckless. And then you had TNA Victory Road last night, San Antonio, Texas. The show featured Nick Nemeth retaining the TNA World Championship over Moose with an assist from JBL taking out the System. You also had the System beat ABC to win the TNA World Tag Team Championships. Jordan Grace beat Wendy Chu to retain the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Post-match, Rosemary came out to lay out Grace. Spitfire regained the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships with a win over Masha Slamovich. And the Hardys picked up a win over First Class, while Speedball Mike Bailey beat Zachary Wentz in a tremendous matchup to win back the TNA X Division title. So, Josh, they basically put the title on Zachary Wentz so it could show up on NXT and then put the title right back on Speedball. They completely nuked my complaints about that title win and then made me have new complaints. What do you think about Speedball winning back the X Division title, Josh?
TNA
gonna TNA, right?
That's how I saw it. Honestly, he should have never lost the belt. Like he had a nice thing going. He beat it. Mustafa Ali, who had a incredible reign, undefeated streak, and then you take the belt off. I don't know. It was just, I get it. You want to put the X Division title on TV. On NXT television, maybe it does something, but just to drop the title like a week or two after, it's like, maybe that didn't need to happen. It could have just had Wentz and Lee face each, like that would have been fine. That's just how I take it.
Yes, it's TNA. It's TNA. But they're doing well. They're doing very well. We should note that
sellout crowds.
Night's victory, San Antonio, Texas, one of their highest selling shows of the year. On TNA Victory Road, saying that she suffered a neck injury and will require surgery. PW Insider reports that the injury is legitimate and not THH. We wished her best wishes on a quick and speedy recovery. But that is all from this week in professional wrestling. And as we close out this week in professional wrestling, we always combine the flagship podcast with our matches of the week and best and worst of the week. So it's just to explain it to you, matches of the week is anything from 3 to 5 to mostly it's me, Rich, because my gimmick is I watch way too much wrestling. So I usually have like 10 matches I want to mention at the end of the week. So I have 10 once again because it was a busy week. But 3, 5, 10 matches that you thought were the best of the week. And we also give a best and worst of the week. Who you thought had the best week and who you thought had the worst week in professional wrestling. And that could be about anything. It could be about real life stuff. It could be about their success in storyline or their non-success in storyline. So your best and worst of the week for me, I will say the best of the week. I gotta give it to Hangman Adam Page for finally beating Swerve Strickland at All Out. So I'll give him the best of the week. And worst of the week, worst of the week, I will probably give it to Mercedes Moné for once again not having a disappointing matchup at another pay-per-view. So that's my best and worst of the week. Josh, what about you?
Best of the week, go with the Motor City Machine Guns. Finally getting their big money deal. Look forward to what they do, and I'm happy for both Saban and Shelly. Both of the guys are very deserving. No matter where they go, very deserving. Worst of the week, I'm gonna go a little bit different. There's nobody that I mentioned. I'm gonna go with the WWE merch team. They try to be slick with those bracelets, and then they got called out by the fan who made those bracelets, and then they took them off, and then they switched it with CM Punk instead of Larry and AJ.
You're onto something. Good point there. Good point there. WWE merch team deserves some Worst of the Week honors. Rich, what about you? Best
All right, the best for me, I'm gonna say in regards to storytelling and how the match went really well, and I think is gonna uplift him as a talent, is the match with Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry at All Out. I felt like that match is gonna elevate Jack Perry. You know, I think it did. You know, I just hope he has the right people around him telling him, like, making him understand that too, and for him not to get gassed about it. You know, for the worst, I'm gonna say you said anything, right? Like personal or whatever.
Yeah, anything. Yep.
She's not active wrestler right now, but what's going on right now with Nikki Bella, I feel like that's bad. That's worse of what's going on right now in her personal life.
Yeah, we'll give it to the husband. That's a whole mess. Yeah.
But you know, it's just a whole emotional thing. Especially, it's tough when you have a child in the middle of it. That's what even makes it extra, you know. So I feel like that's the worst thing going around right now.
Good point. Good point there. Yeah, we gave the husband Worst of the Week when that whole thing started a couple of weeks back. But matches of the week, like I said, it's anywhere 3, 5 you want to mention from this past week. Like I said, always have 10. It seems now, Josh. Maybe next week I'll have less because we didn't have a pay-per-view. But my 10, number 10, Jey Uso, Pete Dunne, Braun Strowman, Ilya Dragunov from Raw. Number 9, Okada, Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, Takeshita from All Out. Number 8, Doki versus Taiji Ishimori from New Japan's Road to Destruction. Number 7, the aforementioned Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry. Had to mention that. I agree with Rich. Great matchup there. Last night, number 6, Speedball Mike Bailey versus Zachary Wentz. I think they showed out at Victory Road and had the best match there. Number 5, Hanare versus Hiromu Takahashi. My boy Hiromu had me believing he was going to win, but he lost and Road to Destruction. Number 4, MJF and Daniel Garcia. Excellent grudge match they had. Number 3, Willow Nightingale versus Chris Statlander from All Out. Number 2, Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve, the Lights Out Steel Cage matchup. Number 1 for me this week, Will Ospreay and Pac, one of my favorite matches of the year. Josh.
I'm gonna go with a top 5 this week. Number 5, I'm gonna go with the Fatal 4-Way on Raw. I'm gonna go with that one. Number 4, I'm gonna go with the Fatal 4-Way from All Out, the Continental Championship match. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Cody versus Solo, the cage match. That was a really fun matchup. Number 2, I'm gonna go with Swerve versus Hangman, the main event for All Out. And number 1 is gonna be Ospreay versus Pac at All Out.
Rich, you're up.
All right. So look, I don't think I could give a specific order because, you know, these are my coworkers. You know, I don't think I could. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just
you don't have to. Just name any matches you thought.
I'm just gonna name matches that stood out to me that I really enjoyed, and of course, one I mentioned earlier, Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry. I felt like that was great. I enjoyed the cage match with Cody and Solo on SmackDown. I'm gonna say Pac and Ospreay did really well in that match. I really enjoyed the tag match with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, and they went up against A-Town. I really enjoyed it. that match. It made sense how it went and everything. And man, maybe one more, right? One more.
What you mentioned so far, you could get one more in there.
This was my first time watching this type of match. So the Javon Evans and Dempsey for the Heritage Cup. That was the first time I really watched
really
that
good,
type
yeah.
of match. And I enjoyed that match. I really enjoyed it. It was a slow start for me. It was like in the beginning, I was just like, oh, this is a drag. They starting to lose me. But then it started to pick up and I really enjoyed that match.
Good shout. Good shout there. Yeah, that was a really good matchup as well. Charlie Dempsey picking up the win with Tavion Heights coming back there. So what a week in professional wrestling as was. And what a week this week with the Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast. We got to thank Rich for you added a lot to this week's episode, and we enjoyed talking the grabs with someone who is a worker, has that worker perspective, but say at the same time have that viewer perspective. You gave a nice kind of well-balanced take and balanced us out as well here on the show. So we appreciate you coming on and joining us. In the description, you can see his link tree with all of his links for all the content and social media that he got. But we want to give you the floor here to let everybody know where they could follow you and see your work and see all you in the ring as well. The floor is yours, good brother.
Well, thank you, man. I really appreciate you guys inviting me on to this. This was really great. I think you guys are doing an amazing job here. But you guys could catch me. I have my own channel on YouTube called Richie Rants, and it's with my co-host Corey Miller. He's actually my best friend. We came up all the way since middle school, wrestling fans, and we sort of do the same thing you guys do here. It's just from a perspective of a worker and a fan. You guys can catch me on Instagram at Rich Port Ayala. You guys could catch me on Facebook at Rich Port Ayala. And usually I'm based here in the Florida area in Tampa Bay. And usually you could catch me weekly for the World Wrestling Network. They have their own subscription. And you guys could catch me on there. I'm actually a regular talent there on a weekly basis that they have, and they stream it on YouTube at the World Wrestling Network. So you guys could catch me there. I really appreciate you guys for this time. It really means a lot to me. And you guys are doing great. Again, you guys are doing an amazing job here.
Thank you so much, Rich. And like I always say this when we have a really good special guest, this won't be the last time we have you on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, because we got to definitely get you back on the flagship or any other shows you could join us for, because we really enjoyed having you here.
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
credit
sir.
to Josh for the book. He did it in the independent. Now he's doing it on our show. Josh, let everybody know where they can follow you.
You can follow me, JMPunk321 on Instagram. And I'll be back on next Saturday for Tru Heel Heat. I'll be back on for the podcast. I do have a show coming up in 2 weeks, I believe. It's either the following I think in 2 weeks. St. Anne's Comic-Con. I'll be doing an artist appearance on the 27th and the 28th. So it'll be a Friday and Saturday. I'll be in Staten Island those both days. My last appearance for the year for 2024 artist appearance. So I look forward to that. Gonna be doing some new sketch cards, some stuff from Deadpool and Wolverine. I look forward to working on those, getting those sketches ready for that, and I look forward to that weekend.
Indeed. Follow Josh, see all his great artwork. We got Andy in the chat. It's his great guest today. I agree. It's this great show today. Thank you, Andy, for the love. If you're watching us on demand, let us know in the comments down below what you thought about Heel Heat. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter machine at Tru Heel SP3. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Tru Heel Heat. Patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat, $3 a month gets you exclusive content and the best place to support us when we are not live here on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. I will probably be going live tomorrow, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time, with Collision Discourse, reviewing tonight's episode of AEW Collision. So you always get notified when we go live. Also on Monday, I will be back with Miss Chris on our second channel, Tru Heel Heat Sports and Entertainment, to review this week's episode of Power Book 2 Ghosts Season 4. So join us for that live over there. And join us live tonight Around the Point Gang. We'll be watching the UFC 306 event. So join us for that as well. Excellent guest that we will definitely have back on. Thank you to Josh, and thank you to all of you who watched live, who watched us on demand, and Chuck Berries, who sent those super chat donations. This has been Tru Heel Heat 294, hurting for Machine Guns and Fox. We are signing off until next time. Later, y'all.